Chapter 261 _ Roar. At the same time, the king opened his sharp-toothed mouth, and a whirlwind, chasing after Perona, cut away. Bang! The entire ice field turned up. Perona looked up at the wind blade that slashed. Vivi bent, and with a groan, a slash that was as bright as day, rose from the ground. The wind and clouds swept across. Like a more ancient light, the wind blade collided with the white light tilde and turned into darkness. The sea was subverted. The ice surface under Perona's feet completely collapsed, and it was completely submerged into the sea. King in the sky, the thick green and black hair, has been dyed red with blood, and finally, like thunder, panting. Has Perona lost? All over the world, staring intently at the center of the sea where the sea is constantly swept away, I only feel that my heartbeat is accelerating. You know, that is Perona, who can compete with Marine Admiral. There is nothing in this world that she dare not do, even the 4 emperors. Could it be that this war will kill you? One after another fierce roaring, high in the sky, the king is surrounded by hurricanes, turning into the master of the wind, which is awesome, no doubt. This is a fierce beast, a monster that people can't resist, even the first emperor pirate group Tianji can also suppress. King in the sky can clearly feel that the man is not dead yet, or that it is impossible to die so easily. Sure enough, confirming King's perception, the world turned upside down, and the endless seawater began to churn violently like boiling water. Some flat ice fields began to be torn apart by an invisible force and gradually turned into ice slag. What's going on? Some of the 2 armies fighting on the broken ice field were unstable at the moment, and they felt the earthquake coming from their feet. Because, visible to the naked eye, the ice field under their feet turned into long swords, as if the entire ice field was composed of swords, covering the entire sea. And the more you get to the center, the more real it is, as if this is no longer the sea, but a sea composed of swords. The sharp knife cut the breath and pierced the skin, hanging in the soul like a god of death. Flesh and blood splattered, and all the lives that were a little closer turned into minced flesh. The deep cold breath, the hair all over his body exploded. The king stood in the air, his dark pupils stared at the boiling sea at this moment. Slowly, the churning sea water separated, and from it, an unrecognizable figure began to slowly lift off into the sky. This. All over the world, looking at the figure lifted up from the sea, they opened their mouths in disbelief. Have you come to this area? On the unknown island, Hawkeye felt the trembling black knife on his back, and the sword light was flowing in his eyes, and a throbbing state of mind had already begun to move. Eyebrows are sharp and the hair is flamboyant. At this moment, Perona has a transparent sword circulating all over her body. The whole body has been completely transformed into the sword world. It is like the awakening of the Paramesha devil fruit. At this moment, everything in the sea seems to be transformed into sword. Om. Opening his eyes, the heaven and the earth moved, and a huge sword energy like a deep abyss spread around, crushing everything recklessly. Circling endlessly, at this moment, Perona's pupils don't seem to be human-like, because inside, there are 2 long swords hanging upside down, and all over her body, she can't feel the breath of life at all. At this moment, Perona seems to be a sword, a knife. Sword controlling demon mode, dual profession combination. With a wave of one hand, an indifferent voice resounded, and an abyss ripped apart the sea and spread to the sky. Dangerous, extremely dangerous. King felt his heart stop. Cold light Lingling, Perona disappeared in an instant, appeared in front of King, one-handed everything, in an instant, endless brilliance, swaying and dazzling, an arc of light, fleeting. Roar. Storm swept through, and the king held the hurricane in his right hand and threw it towards Perona. There was no imaginary explosion, only an easy smash. A beast claw, sprayed with hot blood, fell from the king's eyes. The pain pierced into the bone marrow. King lowered his head in disbelief, looked at his disintegrated animal claws, and cried out in pain. Perona, you are courting death. The violent murderous aura spread, and the king was completely angry. The dark pupils were pitch black at the moment, and the figure disappeared in an instant, appearing in front of Perona, with sharp teeth in his mouth, biting it. The sword chi was full of energy, and the whole arm seemed to be turned into a madman, which firmly restrained the king's bite. The deafening metal sound, King felt that he was biting on a sword, which was very hard. You must know that his bite force, even a diamond, could easily shatter it. Hand resisted the king, Perona's pupil like a small sword, Vivi circulated, the other hand pointed to the king's chest, and stabbed it directly. The next moment, like 1,000 arrows, countless blood sprayed, the king's pupils hissed, and his wings, surrounded by the storm, swept toward Perona. With a grunt, she felt a little unsteady. Perona left a terrifying wound on her chest, and she could even see the beating heart inside, and, after the king's blow, Perona's aura started to become unstable. In the end, the sky collided, one person's sword chi shot into the sky, and the other person was surrounded by a hurricane. With one blow, the whole sky paled, the storm swept through, and turned into a torrent. The sun and the moon turned pale, and two streams of light splattered blood and slammed into two small isolated islands. Like a nuclear explosion, the island collapsed. After countless lives were affected, Perona knelt on one knee, and the changes in her body began to appear. Cough, cough. Flickering and flickering, you can see that on Perona's bone-deep chest, there seems to be an illusory long sword. Judging from this appearance, it is clearly a magic sword. This look, like the unity of man and sword, is full of magical colors. Looking up, the blade in his eyes, full of sharpness, rose up again. Perona wanted to completely obliterate King before the sword god mode collapsed. Otherwise, with mythical's advanced endurance, resilience, and healing power, he may have no chance of winning. As for King, his arm was broken at this moment, his chest was blurred, exuding a huge fierce aura, and he fell into madness. In an instant, the whole world, the wind whistled, and an ominous premonition filled the souls of everyone present. 2. Chapter 262 The huge battle circle, with constant storms, is like a meteor shower, with a flash of brilliance. However, beneath that ultimate beauty lies endless destruction. With the chaos of the war, the unrecognizable ice surface has completely turned into pieces of drifting islands, and even the surrounding remote desert islands, the armies of both sides are fighting at this moment. Especially in the advanced duel in the sky, it was like overturning the river, and no one dared to approach it at all. Or the fierce saying hangs in the air, baking the world, or the demonic energy is rolling, shocking people, or the sword energy is soaring into the sky, killing the world. These terrifying battles are no longer what ordinary people can expect. However, such battles are innumerable. The cadres of the First Emperor pirates fought against Linkong Luzi and Shinuchi of the 100 Beasts pirates. The battlefield was fierce and exploded. The sound rang everywhere. In a moment, a group of troops began to move here. In fact, this war, from the bottom, has already been decided. After all, the initial shell attack directly killed 2/4 of the Beast army. It can be said that in the current battle at the bottom, the Beast army is only struggling to support it, and this is nothing. At least when it dies, it can pull an enemy back. For 3 days and 3 nights, the huge battlefield was already scarlet. The corpses like a sea, with broken limbs and broken arms, sinking into the bottom of the sea in a mess, or lying on the ice. Everything is terrible. The most important thing is that with the opening of the Emperor's War, some surrounding kingdoms also began to be chaotic. Killing, looting, some careerists have also begun to fall into trouble, and the ugliness of human nature can be seen at this moment. As far as the eye can see, the ice surface is broken, and the surrounding islands, large and small, are completely unrecognizable. Except for the high-intensity eruption of high-end combat power, basically, the low-level battle has ended. First, the mad bombardment of Shi Huang's artillery, and then the dark horses of the supernova cadres, the beast pirates, could no longer hold on, and they were either obliterated or captured. From the current point of view, as long as the top battle is over, it means that the battle of the Emperor will be decided. Whether it's Kaido of the Beasts or the first Emperor, they have many enemies. There are countless people who fell into the hole and watched in the dark. On the battlefield of the Battle of the Emperor, as the bottom-level battles were decided, the top-notch duel between the two sides also heated up. The broken sea, the collapsed island, suddenly roared, shaking the sky and entering the clouds. The poisonous gas was billowing, and the bucket-sized eyes were blood-red, stepping out of the abyss. The huge gap, the unimaginable power, is exactly the queen in the state of using the devil fruit. The opponent it faces is Fujitora Isho. The strength is good. Chasing the stars and the moon, Fujitora slowly raised the gesture of drawing his sword, and a meteor fell from the sky, slammed down from the sky, and bombarded the nearby mountains. Queen of Plague, lying in the deep pit, kept twitching. It's not over. Fujitora Isho bent down again, the sky was dark, the endless meteors landed, and the tyrannical breath directly swept the clouds. The speed is extremely fast, like a meteor, fiercely towards the queen, crushing it down. Boom, boom. One blow after another, constantly smashing, the whole unrecognizable island has disintegrated. At the same time, with the defeated Beast Legion, in the end, only Kaido and King were left fighting. After all, at their level, in just a few days, the winner could not be determined. However, as other forces intervene, it becomes a one-sided situation. At this moment, there is no so-called one-on-one. Some people just want to end this war quickly. The cold light Lingling, the sword energy soaring to the sky, shone through a torn sky, directly and endlessly, exploited. Falling down, at the end of the island, Perona wielded countless wind blades, radiating past, along the way, a mess. Huge air pressure, humming, the whole island trembled, and then the sky collapsed. Flying out, his body slammed heavily on the mountain peak. With a huge roar, King knelt down on one knee, opened his mouth and spat out a big mouthful of blood. King maintained the form of a full beast, and his body was covered with sword marks, some wounds, and even deep bones. A few days ago, this kind of injury may have healed long ago, but after these days of fighting, the King's recovery ability has slowed down. So resistant. With King, there is no doubt that Perona's injury is not so serious. After all, Perona, who has entered the ghost sword state, has great ability to recover, heal, and last. King was surrounded by sword and demon breath. Perona looked at King indifferently. Perona, this will be your burial place. The hurricane was circling, as if it dominated the whole world. King opened his red pupils, exuding a chilling aura. Really, are you that confident? Taking a step, the entire broken ground seems to have turned into a vast and rootless sword mound, countless illusory swords, revolving around Perona. An instant of brilliance, the entire sword domain was frozen. Perona Vivi bent over, her eyes were like swords, and the originally rapid breathing disappeared. The hairs of the sweat exploded, and a horrifying opportunity directly spread all over the King's body. King, this is my last blow, don't you die. With a grin, Perona raised his right hand and swiped lightly. In 1,000 years, a transparent slash only 1 meter in size suddenly stopped in the air, and then the invisible figure, 9 times in a row, merged into one, transformed into one. To make a most perfect manifestation, like a white horse passing through a gap, silently flocking to the King. Ghost extinction. Time dawns, and all matter separates, fleetingly, and disappears without a trace. The promised catastrophe. However, in an emergency, King also squeezed all his strength. A grey wind blade, without any fluctuation, collided with Perona's attack slowly. The attacks on both sides were very dull, as if time had slowed down, but the next moment, time flies, and everything has changed in the blink of an eye. Taking 2 steps back, the domain of the sword god maintained by Perona was shattered like a mirror. The demonic energy around Perona's body dissipated, and there was a bloodstain on her white face that silently smeared across her cheek. King on the opposite side, his face was frozen, and half of his body slipped to the ground without a sound, and was divided into pieces. Looks like I won. Perona's face was cold and she looked at the king who was standing only halfway up. Chapter 263_. At the same time, above the sky, two terrifying auras officially started the peak battle. It was cold to the bone, the riot subsided, and a cold wind that penetrated into the soul swept through, as if it fell into the boundless abyss, dark and swallowed up, causing everyone's body, every part of the body to be afraid and tremble. The shocking killing intent began to spread out slowly, silently, and everything around it began to solidify. In midair, he rose from the ground, Chin Luo roared, and the boundless conqueror broke out in the true sense. Overturning the river and overturning the sea, waves of black and red thunder continued to spread out, the entire earth was collapsing, and the sky was covered by dark clouds, forming a sky, and the darkness was overwhelming. The terrifying suffocation, as if the beast escaped from its cage, was full of endless suffocation, making everyone shudder. Dark, empty, without the slightest impurities, some are just cold, so cold that people shudder, and the cold makes the world amazing. There are no emotions and 6 desires that human beings should have. Inside, there is only destruction, tyranny, and anger. Burning slowly, countless black snakes with 26 stripes continued to spread to the entire face and neck, and the whole body began to burn with black evil flames, which changed one after another, and began to appear like a devil. Kaido, can such a flame burn your rough skin to ashes? Like an accent, like a beast roaring, an ominous aura filled the entire world. The world surrenders, and the thunder is added. At this moment, in the eyes of the whole world, there is only that one without any breath, and there is only that black flame like ripples, and that evil body. This face is not a normal human at all, more, is the devil. First Emperor. All over the world, timid people were directly frightened to the ground, because the first emperor was so terrifying now, just looking at that face was horrifying, not to mention the riotous world. Is he really a human? There was a strong man, his heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help feeling a burst of heart palpitations when he saw the various riots inside. The first emperor has shown his true strength. It's a good show, but I don't know if Kaido can resist. At this moment, everyone watching the war held their breath, looking at the figure that seemed to have transformed into a black sun. New World Marine Base, Sengoku's expression was solemn, and his fists couldn't help clenching tightly. He's getting stronger again. Garp stared at the demon engulfed in demonic flames, and a deep cold breath penetrated directly into all the pores. This madman has already started desperate. He looked solemn. She still knew something about that guy. Just by looking at this abnormal change, she knew that the madman had gone mad. Crane, have things been arranged? Sengoku asked cautiously, staring at the screen on the screen, without turning his head. It's ready, as long as Blackbeard wants to lead the way, we can do it. Crane sullenly replied. Well then, let's see how this guy breaks Kaido's defenses. One after another hurricane, wanton tearing, endless black and red thunder, constantly smashing. Below, Perona and the others felt an endless pressure, causing their spirits to be forcibly destroyed, and the injuries on their bodies showed signs of breaking again. No, we have to get out of here. Nami stood in front of Perona, watching her blanched face, trying to cover her ears in fear, and shouted loudly. Nami is right, we should stay farther away. Now the captain's battle is not something we can participate in. But, I think the captain is sober, he just called Kaido. I can't take care of that much. Now that the captain is angry, we should go farther. They were a little worried. It was a little scary to see this situation. The best way is to stay away. All right then, withdraw. The cadres of the first Emperor pirates have stayed away from this central battlefield. High in the sky, the wind is blowing and the clouds are rolling, and a human-shaped sun is burning with billowing demon flames. At this moment, it is constantly exuding the coercion of destruction, causing a stream of air to stir constantly, forming a violent hell. The dark bloodshot pupils only have the intention of destroying and killing at this moment. Ha ha ha. The ground, Kaido rushed into the air, like a cannonball, and appeared in front of Chinluo with a bloody face. Looking at Chinluo's real strength in front of him, Kaido actually felt a palpitating feeling, which was excited and excited. However, before Kaido finished speaking, a deep gasp appeared in front of him, and a deep cold feeling of numbness on the scalp came even more towards his face. PFF'd. Eyes were bulging, his face was distorted, Kaido opened his mouth and vomited blood, and his entire chest collapsed directly, turning into a streamer. At the same time, Chinluo disappeared and reappeared in front of Kaido, who was flying upside down, with his knees bent, and he rose to the sky mercilessly. With a screeching sound, Kaido's figure flying upside down lifted into the air with a muffled groan, but there was a figure waiting in front of him. The tyrannical murderous intention was undisguised. Chinluo clenched his fist, as if holding a meteorite, roared, and slammed into Kaido's head. It broke suddenly, a corner flew off, Kaido's head broke blood, turned into a meteor, and fell from the sky. The ground shook, countless boulders rose up, and a small island collapsed and separated directly. The sea area has set off endless waves. The wind and clouds turned, the sky was violent, and the tip of a gun the size of a mountain slowly fell from the boundless black cloud. In an instant, the electromagnet collapsed, and the boundless black and red thunder was entangled, causing the entire atmosphere to break. With the pressure of both hands, the demonic flames rolled, and the skyless spear, like the hand of God, shot out. Roar! The hurricane swept wildly, flying sand and rocks, and a violent beast breath rushed into the sky. I saw a behemoth in the abyss, incomparably miraculous, slowly stepping out of the air. The palpitating gray-black fog is full of destructive power, and the layers of ripples are wrapped. The mighty lion head, the ferocious antlers, the ferocious tiger eyes, the scaly elk body, the four evil claws-like mountain pillars, and the radiant dragon tail. All of them explain this the terrifying beast. The suffocating aura was in the air, and around the beast, a layer of gray-black fog filled with destructive power shrouded it, as if it had life, causing the atmosphere to hum in ripples. Kaido in dragon form. The despairing power created air pressure and continuously lifted the surrounding sea area. Obviously, Kaido was in a hurry and used all his strength directly. Chapter 264 Yangtian opened his mouth, and a gray-black beam of destruction light collided directly with the magic spear. The earth shook and the mountains swayed, and the waves of air that were overwhelming the sea set off the force of landslides and radiated all around. Falling down, Chinluo's face, full of black scratches, was extremely ferocious at this moment. He forced his way through the collision area and appeared in front of Kaido. He punched out with the power of annihilation. The brutal giant eyes flowed, Kaido raised the animal's claws, and attacked equally fiercely. With one punch and one claw, the mountain collapsed and the ground cracked, and a burst of air spread, and almost at the same time, a dragon tail swept across, causing the space in front of him to be torn apart. And Chinluo roared, his right foot was burning with a billowing demonic flame, and the dragon's tail slammed together heavily. In the next instant, he disappeared, and a man and a beast appeared on another island. They collided with each other. As the mountain exploded, Chinluo vomited blood, grabbed Kaido's tail with one hand, and slammed it to the ground. At the same time, Kaido's hind legs stomped directly on Chinluo's chest, accompanied by a clicking sound. Chinluo ignored it, like a sandbag, grabbed Kaido and smashed it desperately. Blood splattered everywhere, and the entire island could not bear it and collapsed directly. Rotating violently, Chinluo suddenly threw Kaido into the sky, his face twisted, his hands open, and a beam of magic flame rose directly into the sky. The huge explosion formed a mushroom cloud, connecting the heaven and the earth. A painful tearing sensation. In the smoke, Kaido was covered in bruises, and some flesh and blood disappeared directly, revealing blood red and white bones. First Emperor, I want you to die. Mouth, the light of destruction condensed. Kaido was covered in blood, and he launched the energy beam regardless. On the ground, Chinluo raised his head, and his fierce eyes were full of killing intent. The monstrous demonic flames spread, and in the center, a three-legged bird with wings spread out, rolling up endless sand and dust, and ascended into the sky. With a chirping sound, the airflow turned, and a vortex like a magic flame condensed directly in front of the beak of the three-legged god bird. The sun and the moon were reversed, running through everything, all collapsed, sight and hearing disappeared, the whole world seemed to have returned to the most primitive, and only destruction was left. It collided and washed away, the dark unicorn fell, the three-legged divine bird lifted off, and one beast and one bird opened their mouths and spit out endless energy, and began to approach. At the junction, the two beams of light were constantly colliding, and it was visible to the naked eye that the center had already begun to pound. Finally, the critical point reached the apex, so close at hand, the sky and the earth went dark, and it exploded violently. The howling beasts, the miserable cry, and two rays of light fell from the dark chaotic order, like an eternal light, hitting the ground. On the broken island, in the blood-stained sand and stone, the mysterious unicorn gasped at the tip of the nose, and the image was extremely tragic. On an island not far away, the landslides and the ground cracked, the wings of the divine bird were stained with blood, and stood up staggeringly. Soaring up, no matter what, one beast and one beast bitten again. For a time, pitch-black scales splattered, and dazzling plumes fell, accompanied by one after another neighing and roaring, blood and flesh splashed, forming a slaughterhouse. The sharp beak directly pecked at the Qilin's eyes. With a roar of pain, the Qilin opened his mouth and bit the divine bird's wings. With a whimper, the other wing of the divine bird tilted, leaving a bone-deep wound on the unicorn. The unicorn also raised a beast claw and grabbed the belly of the divine bird, but was caught by the divine bird's three claws. Resisted. Sharp teeth, beaks, feathers, claws, tail feathers, one animal and one bird are all crazy, using everything to extremes, not defending at all, attacking directly. In just a moment, blood splattered, the left eye of the unicorn was hollow, the scales on the upper and lower body were broken, and it was covered with sharp claw scars. As for the divine bird, its wings were broken, and the fallen feathers on its body were in a mess, and its flesh was blurred. This fight was very tragic. With a roar, the island completely collapsed, and the sea was lifted up, forming a tsunami that overturned everything. Outside, watching this fierce beast fight, everyone fell silent. This is no longer a battle they can understand, because this is not a human being fighting at all, but a complete two fierce beasts. Powerful power, terrifying ability, ferocious slaughter, and supreme majesty all show that this is the Emperor, the real supreme, the real supreme. This is the power of the summit, the foundation of all dreams. The blood-soaked, white-stained bones were stained with flesh and blood, slipping drop by drop. One dragon and one phoenix, panting and holding each other fiercely. Scales splattered, Kaido turned into a dragon's hollow eye socket, and the blood flowed non-stop at this moment. A beast's claw was bizarrely folded in half, only a trace of flesh and blood remained, and there was no intact place on the whole body. On the opposite side, the divine bird stood on three legs, with the head of the divine bird raised up, its body covered with scars, its fallen feathers were scarlet, its left wing once rested on the ground in an irregular shape, and a pair of red eyes, now full of tyranny. The surroundings were in a mess, and a pungent bloody smell was even more disgusting. Click, click, diaresis. Incarnated as an adult, Chinluo grabbed his left arm without changing his face, and with a burst of drumming, accompanied by the harsh clicking sound, the originally strangely curved arm was directly connected to each other. Just looking at this appearance made people's teeth tremble, but Chinluo's face did not fluctuate at all, as if it was not his hand, he could not feel the pain at all. On the opposite side, Kaido has also released the full beast transformation. Now, neither of them has much physical strength to maintain the full beast transformation, not to mention, this broken body may collapse at any time. In other words, the two of them are basically running out of oil now. Diaresis, haha, it seems that you can't kill me. The corner on his head has been broken. Kaido opened his one eye, exuding evil spirits, and looked at Chin Luo playfully. Frosty face, Chin Luo just sneered at Kaido's arrogance. I can't kill you, but I can destroy you. Besides, do you really think I can't kill you? Hearing Chin Luo's response, Kaido's face turned hideous, and the blue veins continued to spread. What the other party said was right. Now that he was defeated, and looking around, his legion Zhao Dahao either fled or was caught, and even the three disasters died. Ha ha ha, I admit that my legion is not as good as yours. But so what, as long as I don't die, then I'm still Kaido of the Beasts. If you can't kill me, then you will wait for my crazy revenge. I can tell you with certainty that your power is over. Now that you have killed all my subordinates, then I will slaughter your first emperor pirates. Let's see who is the craziest. Laughing wildly, Kaido speaks bluntly. Undoubtedly, Kaido, who is alone, is like a moving nuclear bomb. It explodes wherever it goes. If Chin Luo really can't kill him, then the future of the first emperor pirates, just sad. Kaido is too confident in himself, and thinks that his ability to awaken and self-protection is like a sky, and no one in the world can break it. That's why he is so unscrupulous. However, this time Kaido was disappointed because Chin Luo also had a whole card. Chapter 265 Kaido, you are too conceited and too stupid. It can be seen with the naked eye that the wounds on the two of them are healing, and the breath on their bodies is gradually picking up. This is the horror of mythical. Stepping, Chin Luo walked towards Kaido until, only 1 meter apart. And such a close distance directly formed a sense of impact, because facing Kaido's body like a hill, Chin Luo was like chopsticks, and he was not as high as Kaido's calf. However, even this seemingly extremely weak body contained a power that was enough to destroy the world. At this moment, the whole world held its breath and couldn't help but lift its heart. Finally, in the eyes of the whole world, Chin Luo spoke. Since you said so, then I will naturally send you an eternal funeral. The flames burned, Chin Luo's eyes were golden, and he said coldly, that is, destroy everything related to you Kaido of the Beasts. I want the Sea of Beasts to be completely reduced to ruins, and I want the hundreds of millions of lives that live on it to fall. Quote. After finishing speaking, Chin Luo rose into the sky, the golden red flames all over his body disappeared, and the breath of hell emerged from his body, mysterious and unpredictable, switched to Uchiha Madara's state, stretched out his hand, and slammed into the direction of the beast continent, said indifferently. Funeral. Senrin's murderous intent stirred up the 713 situation. Ha ha ha, First Emperor, you are dreaming. At this moment, Kaido, who had recovered his senses, laughed loudly, and didn't take Chin Luo's words to heart at all. Not to mention the First Emperor's ability to destroy the Sea of Beasts, it is impossible for those hundreds of millions of lives to be wiped out. Yes, there is still his power in the 100 Beast Sea area. It can be said that there is his base camp. As long as it is not destroyed, Kaido will be able to make a comeback. A super large island is a continent, and it is impossible to completely destroy it. For example, the Sea of Beasts is just cracked. It is equivalent to a continent, divided into 2 or 3 halves. With the rotation of the underground current, the Sea of Beasts has begun to border and heal. I believe it will be soon again. A very large island will be formed. It can be said that the previous reports that the 100 Beast Sea territory has been completely broken or exaggerated, because there is news, and there is money. However, the dangerous land mentioned above is true, and now, there are already pirates competing for territory. This is the law, the world is evolving on its own. For Kaido's wild laughter, Chin Luo just watched with cold eyes. Just wait a moment, he believes that the whole world will shake. CGAC, this time, he wants to shock the world well, he is the first emperor, not a soft-hearted person. In Chin Luo's indifferent eyes, Yi suddenly became bright, and at the same time, a strange force suddenly fluctuated on Qin Luo's body. Qin Luo gently folded his hands in front of his chest, then opened it again. A mass of pitch-black matter the size of a finger appeared in Qin Luo's palm. The next moment, this strange mass of matter suddenly flew into the sky. Do you want to dance too? Planetary devastation. Surrounded by strong winds, the pirates who are like a sea of people, and the chaotic living trees and jungles are surging towards Qin Luo. All kinds of miscellaneous abilities have even fallen in the distance, and all kinds of rays of light are intertwined, and I don't know what abilities they are. And just when these chaotic rays of light fell to Qin Luo like a violent storm, the black ball that flew out of Qin Luo's palm also flew into the sky. At the same time, Qin Luo's eyes were flat, and he waved his hand at these messy weapons and rays of light. These messy abilities and attacks all froze in the air, as if time was frozen. What is that? At this time, everyone noticed the strange black ball that just flew out of Qin Luo's hand, and raised their heads to look at the sky. Kaido also raised his head, looking at the strange black sphere in the sky that seemed to overlap the sun, and Vivi couldn't help frowning. Boom! In the next instant, a terrifying wave finally erupted from the black ball, spreading in all directions in an instant. The dark clouds that filled the sky suddenly began to shrink rapidly under this force, rushing towards the black ball in the middle. It was as if this black sphere was a bottomless vortex. Alert! Alert! Marine base, the red light broke out at this moment. All the Marines were all geared up and gathered for the first time. However, before they could do anything, the entire base floated up and absorbed towards the meteorite in the sky. A short time, the news of planetary devastation appeared all over the world. Marshal Sengoku, 311, several bases in succession, were suddenly absorbed and shattered into the sky. Marine headquarters, the phone bugs kept ringing, making Sengoku a face, black as the bottom of a pot. That guy really wants to destroy a super large island. On the screen, he looked at the meteor that could no longer be seen, and held his hands tightly, his face turned pale. It was hard for her to imagine how many people would be wiped out because of the appearance of this meteor. This is his new method. The Revolutionary Army base also suffered huge losses. Long looked at the planetary devastation hanging in the air on the screen. With his hands firmly supporting the table, his face changed greatly. Kaido, this is a gift I specially prepared for you. Take a good look at how the Sea of Beasts disappeared into the sea. Suspended in the air, Qin Luo grinned wildly, looking at the endless planetary devastation, flashing from the edge of the sky, and finally falling to the distant land of beasts. Not only the dark clouds in the sky, but even the entire Sea of Beasts, and even the sea outside the island, trembled violently and began to roar. Not good. Feeling this terrifying power, everyone present finally began to change their expressions. What kind of force is this? Gravitation. The pirates of the beasts felt a touch of horror after feeling the terrifying gravitational force on the earth and on them. First of all, the big trees and stones that survived rose from the island like raindrops, fell to the sky, and kept screaming in horror. Then, the island finally began to collapse. After the power of planetary devastation began to explode, Qin Luo asked the first Emperor pirates to withdraw from a safe distance. The crowd showed an extremely shocked look. This is not the most shocking thing. The most shocking thing is that almost all the buildings in the entire 100 Beast Sea area collapsed and were lifted up from the ground. Nearly half of the Sea of Beasts collapsed, and in this collapse, they were all sucked into the sky. At such a close distance, watching half of the island collapse and be sucked into the sky, what a shocking scene. And what's worse, what collapsed and was sucked into the sky was not just half of the Sea of Beasts, but also a piece of seawater in the Wangyang Sea outside the Sea of Beasts. Almost all of the 100 Beast pirates are capable people. When they are washed by the sea water, almost all of them become useless people. They can't use any strength, and they are directly wrapped in the sea water and debris and fly to the sky. Chapter 266 _ Damn it. How can this gravitational force be so strong? I can't get rid of it at all. What kind of abilities does the first Emperor Qin Luo possess? It can't go on like this, we have to find a way to smash it. Lingkong Luzi looked at the core of planetary devastation, which was getting closer and closer, and his expressions were ugly. They gritted their teeth and prepared to attack together. However, at this moment, Qin Luo, who had been standing below and looked at the sky lightly, suddenly pointed at the sky and waved his sleeves lightly. Whoa! In an instant, the monstrous sea water suddenly accelerated, like a 10,000 zhang fountain, rushing towards the 6 suns of the sky. Not good. Oops, sea water. Almost all of Lingkong Luzi's expressions changed drastically. When they hurriedly tried to avoid them, they were unable to avoid them completely because they were pulled by gravity. They still got some sea water, and their bodies became a little weak immediately. They were instantly terrified and desperately wanted to exert their powers, but it was too late, and finally they were swept up by the monstrous sea water and rushed into planetary devastation. Finally, everything was silent. In the sky, a huge star appeared, centered on the sea of 100 beasts, and the sea water that was almost larger than an island, fused together. The completed planetary devastation is almost larger than the sea of beasts. It is suspended in the sky, almost covering the sky. Although there is no sign of falling, it still gives people an endless depression and heart palpitations. Is this what the first Emperor Qin Luo did? How is that possible? Human can do such a thing? Almost all the pirates were paralyzed, covered in cold sweat, looking at the sky, their bodies trembling constantly. At this time, the center of the meteorite fell, the seabed. Kaido of the beasts was lying there, looking at the extremely huge meteorite falling from the sky, and muttered, "Meteorite. That guy, how did he do it?" Under everyone's horrified, sluggish, or terrified gaze, this extremely huge meteorite finally fell with a bang. In an instant, the world overturned. The huge meteorite fell on the fragmented island and fell into the sea. The shock of this scene can no longer be described in words. This meteorite does not seem to have landed on the distant sea, but in the hearts of all people, imprinted in their minds. The gigantic wave that was set off in an instant seemed to sweep through the hearts of everyone, even in a distant place. Those who watched this scene through live broadcast were all buzzing in their hearts and unable to think. In his mind, only the scene of the meteorite falling is left. This scene will never be forgotten. On the sea, several broken pirate ships floated alone on the sea. After planetary devastation fell, the waves were so big that even pirates like Jack of Drought had nothing to do with such terrifying waves. Addition, the 100 Beast pirates are basically zone-capable people, and some of them with fishman ability can't suppress such a huge wave, so just the wave of the aftermath almost knocked them out. Although several ships were eventually saved, most of the people still fell into the sea. Even if there are a lot of incompetent people on the ship who are diving underwater to save people, it is still impossible to rescue all the people who have been driven into the sea. At this time, these broken ships were slowly approaching the island where Qin Luo and Kaido of the Beasts fought before. After the island was torn apart, it was covered by planetary devastation, a new, rugged and desolate island. Farther away, the ships that were spied on from afar by various forces also lost a large area, and there were few that could be intact. Almost all of them looked at the distance with a pale face. The completely new-looking island, a desolate island, seemed to still resonate with the monstrous waves just now. This sea is going to run wild. No one can see clearly what this era will become. These people don't know whether Kaido of the Beasts died in Qin Luo's hands, but there is no doubt that Kaido of the Beasts was defeated by Qin Luo's hands, which is an indisputable fact. An idea popped into everyone's mind. This era will be completely rewritten. Holy Land Mariajoy. This is the center of the world government, and the Gorosei 5 elders, the highest power core of the world government, are sitting or standing, looking at the images projected in front of them. At this time, the image was showing the scene of the continuous roaring of the island. From time to time, there were rubble splashing around, and the sea constantly set off waves. If it's just this level of attack, it won't kill that Kaido of the beasts. It seems that Chinluo's ability should be just restrained, and he was killed by Chinluo before he could exert his ability. In this case, it should still be within the controllable range. The only thing is that the ability to suck the island and the sea into the sky is a little more troublesome, but after Kuzan freezes the sea, it's not a big problem. Gorosei, 5 elders looked at the scene in the picture, drinking tea and discussing each other. Their expressions were still very indifferent, and they did not show any serious expressions. Keep fighting like this, Kaido should be able to win. One Gorosei, 5 elders said lightly after taking a sip of tea while looking at the screen. However, almost as soon as his voice fell, a roaring sound suddenly came, and the entire island trembled, as if a wave mark swept across the sea in an instant. Click. At the same time as the stormy waves broke out on the sea, the entire island shattered. This destroyed the entire island in one blow. When Gorosei, 5 elders saw this scene, they couldn't sit still any longer. Immediately afterwards, the complexion of Gorosei, 5 elders changed drastically. When they saw that a huge meteorite-like meteor suddenly appeared in the sky, ripped apart the clouds, and fell into the sea, even they were all horrified. What? Meteorite? What a joke. Damn it, what kind of power is that? Among the Gorosei, 5 elders, someone was holding the teacup's hand, and even couldn't help but tremble. The tea water instantly spilled onto the ground, wet the blanket below, and the tea leaves were scattered on the blanket. There was nothing but the sky with endless thick dark clouds. Suddenly, such a huge meteorite appeared without warning. This scene is simply incredible. Gorosei, 5 elders know that there is a kind of gravitational fruit that can pull meteorites from the sky to attack, but the meteorites that are pulled down are completely different from Chinluo's planetary devastation. This meteorite itself is not terrible. Marine Admiral and even Garp Sengoku and others teamed up enough to shatter it, but the question is, how did it come about? Did it come out of nowhere? It's just terrifying. 2. Chapter 267 Whoa. After planetary devastation fell, a monstrous ocean wave was set off, sweeping in all directions, and in the projected picture, the wave was getting bigger and bigger, and it was even like being there, causing Gorosei, 5 elders to break out in a cold sweat. Pat. The projection stopped abruptly here. Obviously, the ship they sent to investigate had been attacked by the waves, and it was unknown whether it had sunk at this time. Picture disappeared, but the expressions of Gorosei, 5 elders were all extremely ugly. When they looked at each other, they could see the shock in each other's eyes. Damn, how can Chinluo's strength be so strong? Anyway, try to hold him steady, he can give him anything he wants. Few Gorosei, 5 elders said a word to me, and everyone's attitude was almost surprisingly consistent. Chaotic battle. The field is full of corpses, and the breath is messy. First Emperor, I'm going to kill you. Roaring loudly, Kaido lost his mind and rushed towards Chinluo regardless. If he wants to kill this man, he must kill him. Has already lost a crushing defeat. Now Kaido, in the whole body and mind, there is only one figure, that is to send this bastard to hell. The state of the blazing feather flame phoenix vermilion bird. With cold eyes, Chinluo looked at Kaido, who was rushing up. His originally weak body had recovered to its peak. In comparison, Kaido's breath has dropped countless levels. Down into the air, Chinluo grabbed the other corner of Kaido tyrannically and slammed it to the ground, beating back and forth. One after another deafening explosions sounded, falling rocks rolled, and endless cracks spread out. The figure is hanging in the air. Chinluo is holding Kaido with one hand, his eyes are golden red, and he says with murderous intent, "Aren't you crazy?" Clenched his fist and produced a sonic boom. Chinluo directly penetrated Kaido's chest. Under the other's bulging eyes, he let go and let Kaido fall to the ground. Cough. Vomited blood. Kaido lay unrecognizable on the ground, stared at Chinluo, and said fiercely, "You can't kill me." In Chinluo's eyes, Kaido's whole body was covered with a gray-black energy shroud, which was why Qin-luo let go. Lying in the energy hood, Kaido's broken body is rapidly healing. This is like a nutrient nest, constantly repairing Kaido's body. The only difference is that this nutrient nest contains an invincible defense. You can't kill me, just wait for me to destroy everything about you. The flames all over his body disappeared. Qin-luo looked at the crazy Kaido inside the energy hood. His figure slowly moved sideways in front of the energy hood. His eyes were burning with slow flames, and he looked at Kaido like this. You are very strong, but no one in this world can kill me, including you Qin-luo. By now, Kaido was fearless, or at least not at all. And with the appearance of Kaido's final power, some people who have dealt with it all stared at it, because they all wanted to know if the final result was the same as usual. Self-protection appears, and it looks like Kaido is all right again. Marine Base, Sengoku and others looked at the scene inside and sighed. It was because of this that Marine suffered countless losses. If it wasn't for this energy shield, then it was Kaido. Breaking through Marineford alone time and time again, can you leave alive? Sengoku can tell you for sure, wishful thinking. More than once, Marine caught Kaido, but because of this ability, even if he caught Kaido, he could only let it go. Because as long as you are in this layer of energy, any means will be useless, which is also the biggest capital that Kaido can be rampant. Otherwise, would he dare to break into the Marine single-handedly? Invade the territory of the four emperors? Not necessarily. That guy has already destroyed the Sea of Beasts and completely destroyed everything in Kaido. If Kaido can't be killed, then the first Emperor pirates will have no peace in the future. He looks crazy, but he's not stupid. Compared to Sengoku's conjecture, Suru had a different opinion. I also have a feeling that the guy shouldn't have such plans. Garp's face was dignified, his forehead was tight, and the wrinkles were directly squeezed together. Then let's look at this guy. What other cards are there? Sengoku folded his arms and stared at the picture on the screen. Almost at the same time, other forces, all the monsters who knew Kaido's abilities, all stared at him, for fear of missing something. On the battlefield, the remaining beast legions are either dead or fleeing. Now, not only the entire battlefield is watching, but the whole world is also watching. Even if the battle of the Emperor has fallen, as long as Kaido does not die, all the results are unpredictable. After all, there are people who can suppress Kaido in this world, but there are not many. You can count them with 2 palms, but killing them in rounds is a mystery. At the level of Kaido, monsters with the same strength want to kill a person. It can be said that it is more difficult than reaching the sky. There are only 3 possibilities to fight with equal strength. The first is that one party loses for unknown reasons and just wants to escape. The second is that both sides suffer, or die together, and the last is that one of the 2 parties has restrained abilities and is even stronger. But even in the third category, the last person alive is definitely seriously injured, or even on the verge of dying. This is also why, among the real powerhouses, the chance of death is very small, because if you are not careful, you will catch yourself. The gray-black energy cover circulates like a cascade of waterfalls, making it difficult to start, wrapping Kaido in all directions. Ha ha ha. Lying on the ground, Kaido laughed and looked at Qin-luo who was standing still, looking down arrogantly. First Emperor, you are very angry. I want to die too, but unfortunately you don't have that ability. Full of madness, Kaido is showing off, scorning, sarcastic. If you want to die, I will fulfill you. The corners of his mouth rose, and Qin-luo suddenly showed a sharp tooth, giving him an extremely creepy aura, and responded to Kaido coldly. Suddenly, the billowing flames wrapped around him. Qin-luo's eyes were golden and white, and quickly transformed. On the blood-covered forehead, the blazing feathered flame phoenix vermilion bird soaring, appeared directly, and then connected end to end, spreading directly to the scarred chest, and transformed into a group of fierce words. The most peculiar thing is that with the formation of Lai Yu, Faintly, in a world of fire, a purple gold claws are looming. Endless brilliance appeared in Lai Yu, and a domineering aura of destruction began to appear. Lightning flashed, the whole sky was surging, and around, a powerful hurricane was spinning again and again. The world, at this moment, is dark. Chapter 268 At this moment, Qin Luo's golden and white eyes were like a pool of stagnant water, and some were just cold-blooded towards life. Deep in the bones, on the broken chest, Lai Yu, which was connected to the end, began to turn, and a purple gold claw slowly protruded out. In front of the claw, a strand of hair spread out in the space. Size cracks. They collided suddenly, and the purple gold claws and the energy shield were like water waves, without any sound, and ripples appeared silently. In an instant, it was overwhelming, and an impact force, centered on Qin Luo and Kaido, formed a huge wave, set off everything, and subverted it. You can't kill me. Looking at Qin Luo, who was blocked by the energy shield, Kaido smiled. Kaido, don't be too confident. With murderous intent, Qin Luo's healed wound began to burst, and a pungent bloody smell enveloped his body directly. Captain. The distance, against the endless air pressure, Fujitora and the others stood unsteadily, looking at Qin Luo, whose blood was splattering, with a burning heart. At this moment, a slight click sound spread all over the world. No, impossible. Unbelievable, a roar resounded through the sky, only to see the gray-black energy cover, 26 began to produce a crack, and slowly began to grow. Crack, knock. Break it for me. With a roar, the purple gold claws on Qin Luo's chest rioted instantly, and penetrated the energy shield directly and forcefully. And with the penetration of the sharp claws, the entire energy shield turned into fragments like a mirror. The riot ceased, and with the mirror-like shattering sound, the entire battlefield seemed to be silent. The flying sand and stones began to dissipate. At the center, Qin Luo stood in front of Kaido, his face pale and grinning. No, impossible, it's not true. As if losing his mind, Kaido couldn't believe that the capital he relied on would be broken. However, feeling the empty tear in his body, Kaido knew that his strongest strength had really been shattered. The huge contrast makes Kaido unacceptable. And struggling to get up, Kaido directly attacked Qin Luo. He wanted the man to die. However, Kaido's broken body now has no strength at all, and he can't gather even a shred of armed force. He can only attack Qin Luo with his bare hands. And Qin Luo, looking at Kaido who was struggling, the flames in his eyes disappeared, revealing the lacquered chrome hole full of bloodshots. He looked at Kaido like a devil, clenched his fists without blinking, and collided with Kaido. The ground collapsed, Qin Luo didn't move, and Kaido, like a kite with a broken string, opened his mouth and vomited blood. His arms bent strangely, and hit the ground heavily. I'm going to kill you. Dust was flying, Kaido's hands were crippled, and with one eye open, he struggled from the ground, faced Qin Luo again, and rammed over. As his eyes narrowed, Qin Luo disappeared and appeared on Kaido's head. With one kick, he stepped down directly. In a short time, the ground collapsed, and a large pit with countless cracks spread directly in all directions. The smoke dissipated, and Qin Luo stomped on Kaido's head, causing the other party to struggle with humiliation. Kaido, I won't let you die so easily. Haven't you always wanted to die? Today I will fulfill you. Do you know how Bigmom died? Vivi leaned over. Qin Luo showed a smile, as if looking at something exquisite. There were abnormal emotions in his eyes. Eyes trembled, Kaido was unnatural, and his heart beat fast. Pucci. The fire was shining, and 4 flaming guns appeared directly on Qin Luo's head, revealing a deep cold breath. Ferocious Isho, Qin Luo waved his hand, accompanied by blood soaring to the sky. Kaido's limbs were nailed to the ground. And Kaido, also crazy, with huge red eyes, tyrannically said, "Is that all you have? This ability?" No. Vivi raised his head. Qin Luo stretched his index finger, shook it, squeezed word by word from his teeth, I won't let you die like Bigmom. Hurry, because I want you to live rather than die. The figure flew down. Chinluo stood on Kaido's abnormally bent right hand, stretched out his feet, stepped on his fingers, and slowly pressed it back and forth. Fingers and hearts, I don't know if it's true. With the minced meat, Chinluo rolled back and forth, and in just a moment, Kaido's fingers turned into crumbs. Kaido felt the piercing pain for the first time. PFF'd. Blood splashed, concocted according to law. Chinluo stepped on Kaido's other finger. Take your time, you have 10 fingers, 2 arms, 2 legs, 10 toes. Crazy, with a perverted face at the moment, he stomped Kaido's 5 fingers into shreds, followed by his wrist, arm, and arm. If you have the ability, kill me. Blue veins jumped. Kaido's face was bloodless, and the only eyes were even more bulging at the moment. Don't worry, it's just the beginning. Out his tongue and licking the blood splashing from the corner of his mouth, Chinluo appeared on Kaido's other hand as if he was insane. Asshole. The pain of digging bones and meat made Kaido's heart twitch. With the removal of the energy shield, for some reason, Kaido's 5 senses became clearer, and the hardness of his body dropped to freezing point. Although Kaido didn't scream, the twisted muffled sound told the world that he was suffering unparalleled pain. Since Chinluo broke the energy shield, the people watching from all over the world have been stunned. All of them opened their mouths and watched intently. However, what happened next turned into a nightmare, making them pale and horrified. What did they see? Inch by inch, rolling back and forth, fingers, wrists, arms, Kaido's limbs, have become minced meat. Immediately after, 2 sharp spears pinned Kaido in midair, and the first emperor held a flaming knife in his hand and started to peel off his skin. The blood was dripping, and the blurred and horrifying scene made people all over the world bend over and vomit. Some were timid and even fainted, and some strong-willed people were also clenching their teeth at this moment. Unstoppable cold sweat. However, all this is not over, because Kaido's prosperous vitality, which led to all this, has only just begun. Take the flesh and cut the bones, and pieces of flesh and blood are peeled off Kaido. Looking at this posture, Chinluo wants to Linkai Kaido. This bloody scene filled people all over the world with fear, nausea and nausea. Cruel, so cruel, just looking at it makes everyone feel terrified and scared. That man is a devil, definitely a devil. Chapter 269 _ The blood was stained red, Chinluo was covered in blood, and a pile of neatly minced meat had appeared on the ground, and these were all separated from Kaido. An hour later, Kaido, who was pinned to the air by 2 spears, was no longer in human form. The limbs disappeared, the skin peeled off, and only a little of the flesh and blood on the body was left to maintain the vital organs, because Chinluo's movements had no intention of ending at all. Kaido, who has turned into a flesh and blood skeleton, is also dying at this moment, only a faint gasp remains. Aren't you immortal? You can't bear this pain anymore. He opened his hand, the flames condensed, and a saw appeared in Chinluo's hand. If you have the ability, you will kill me. Mouth and vomited blood, Kaido raised his head hard and looked at Chinluo resentfully. Don't worry, I'll do it for you. Squinting his eyes, Chinluo at this moment is extremely abnormal. Maybe he doesn't even know what he is doing. It may be that the cruel and tyrannical nature of Kaiyu Yanwang Suzaku affected Chinluo's mind. With a wailing cry, Chinluo's 2 fingers were blood red, accompanied by a splashing eyeball, and the whole blood-stained face distorted directly. The flame sawtooth in his hand rested directly on Kaido's rib, obviously to be sawed off a little bit. This scene is simply hell. Captain. In the distance, the supernova pretty faces were bloodless and almost fainted from fright. Even Fujitora, Perona and the others are shaking their calves at this moment, their pupils are pale and their bodies are shaking. Hey, aren't we going to stop it? Supernova Beige swallowed, feeling scared for the first time, the kind that revealed fear from his soul. Do you dare to go? Then, Or, forget it. Bej shivered and dismissed the previous thoughts. It's definitely a devil. The sky is terrible. Is he a demon who crawled out of hell? The whole world trembled, looking at the appalling slaughter in the picture. Even the thugs who were born evil were all chilled at the moment. Give me an order not to provoke the first Emperor pirates in the future. All over the world, some pirate groups, or some kingdoms, the supreme rulers have issued orders one after another. The first emperor was so terrifying, it was simply outrageous. The 4 emperors Bigmom was brutally killed, now another 4 emperors were brutally killed by the first emperor, and the method was extremely tragic, and it was simply impossible for humans to do. At this moment, in the eyes of the whole world, the first emperor of the 4 emperors is no longer a human being, but a living demon, a devil. But the key point is that this inhuman devil is so powerful that it is despairing. Since it can't be reached, then the only option is to avoid it. Otherwise, if you are targeted by this devil, you will not simply die. Because you never know what cruel things the devil will do when he becomes mad. The Cake Island and the Sea of Beasts are teeming with flames at this moment. Looking at the first emperor since his debut, how many people have died directly or indirectly because of him? In the eyes of this devil, life is nothing but withered grass. It's fine if you don't pierce him. If you pierce him, you will be greeted by endless destruction. Finally, bloody, for 3 full hours, Chinluo held Kaido's breath, accompanied by the last unwilling roar. Then Kaido of the Beasts, known as the strongest monster in the sea, land and air, completely lowered his head. There were broken bones all over the ground. Chinluo was suspended in front of a pile of minced meat. The dark hair was dark red at the moment, and every drop of pungent blood dripped. The whole person seemed to be soaked in the sea of blood, closed his eyes and looked up. His head felt the light coming from the rootless depths of the sky. Master, diaresis. Now, after feeling Chinluo's calming breath, Nami and the others dared to move their feet and landed in front of Chinluo. After all, the impact just now was too great, even if it was Perona and the others who killed people without blinking an eye. But also a trembling heart. Leave a team to clean the field and the rest of the army to go back. Looking indifferently, Chinluo is very calm, but calm and terrifying. Standing up from the ground, the terrifying coercion rolled over. Chinluo turned into Chenghong, and disappeared directly in place. Bej, stay to clean the battlefield, the rest, return to the first Emperor pirates. Seeing Chinluo can't wait to leave, Perona gave an order, then rushed to the first Emperor and turned around. Why me? In the whole scene, except for a few warships in the sea, Bej's face was bitter and he seemed a little lonely. Lord Bej. At this moment, Bej's direct fleet all looked at him. Go, Bej sighed, helpless. And with the end of the entire battlefield, the originally quiet world boiled. At the same time, with the death of Kaido, the newspapers spread all over the world. After all, those who can watch the live broadcast are in some particularly important places, and some remote areas are still somewhat difficult. The news bird does not have this area restriction, therefore, a piece of news is also passed into the hands of various beings. The 4 emperors Kaido of the Beasts was dismembered by the Emperor Shihuang of the Shihuang Pirates. The news of Ling Kai, coupled with the minced meat, bone foam, and Chinluo who was covered in blood with an abnormal grin, those pictures and reports, radiated directly to the entire sea. As we all know, the strongest man in the world is Whitebeard Edward Newgate. But now, with the impact of these years, the world is beginning to wonder. Some people say that the strongest emperor should be Whitebeard, and some people think that it is Red Hair, or Red the Aloof. However, after someone took out the record of the first emperor, most of the people in the world believed that the emperor of the first emperor pirate group, the first emperor was the strongest of the 4 emperors. Take a look at the achievements of the first emperor. Shichibukai Doflamingo, Marine Admiral Akainu, Shichi Bigmom, and now Shichi Kaido of the Beasts. Since then, the world is silent. Although some righteous people scoffed, it was undeniable that the first emperor was powerful and cruel. Naturally, the strongest man in the world became the first emperor directly. After all, since the beginning of the war on the top, Whitebeard has rarely shot, and even the Whitebeard pirates have rarely seen them. Therefore, compared with the big moves of the first emperor pirates during this period, the two are judged high and low. The strongest is just one of the words, because there are many words to describe the horror of the first emperor. For example, cruel, devoid of conscience, inhuman, cold-blooded, devil, demon, all negative words are basically used to describe the first emperor. Of course, things are completely two-sided. Some people hate Shi Huang, and some people worship Zhao Lei, respect Shi Huang. Among them, this is the case in the realm of the first emperor pirates. As residents of the first emperor pirates, they feel stability, peace, and equality. Although they also know that their captain's methods are cruel, this is also for protection. They sentenced. Human nature is like this: whoever treats him well, he will support him. After all, this world is so cruel and morbid. For these people, it is their wish to live peacefully in the first emperor pirates without burning, killing and looting. Anyone who tries to destroy this hard-won life is an enemy, even if the other party is helpless. Power, even innocent women, old and young. You know, this world is inherently unfair. Weakness is sin, and the fist is big as the truth. This is the embodiment of the world. If you want to live a nourishing life, you have to sacrifice your means. Only strength can keep you from being bullied, and you can't even choose death. Kindness, love, help, these are all qualified to talk about only if they are based on strength, otherwise, they are beyond their own power. And this is reality. Chapter 270 Vast Sea. A newsbird flew across the sky, and a bullet pierced through the sky, leaving behind a pile of newspapers. Captain, Kaido is dead. S body. Van Augur looked at the information in the newspaper in his hand, and his face changed. A few minutes later. I didn't expect that even Kaido's self-protection of the first emperor could be broken. It seems that he is underestimated. Putting down the newspaper, Blackbeard's expression was a little dignified. Is the route back of the first emperor pirates clear, and how long will it take to arrive? Half a day left. Notify the people below, release the news, next, it's our Blackbeard pirates' turn to resound through the sea. New World, the Whitebeard Sea, an island of death where the weather is extremely bad and various storms coexist. Hailstorms, hurricanes, temperatures, climates, like a mess, are playing out on this dead island. In the center of the island, there is a ferocious skeleton that is more than half the size of the entire island. It has a vast atmosphere and overlooks it. Obviously, it was because of this huge skeleton that the island slowly formed such an island with an extremely harsh climate under the flow of time. Also because of the bones of this huge creature, there is a safe area in the head area. Generally speaking, in extremely bad places, there will always be some terrifying lives, and this island is like this. Dad, this is the latest round of news. The center of the island, the safe area, has been transformed into a camp. In the deepest tent, the former strongest man in the world is lying on the bed at the moment, full of nutritional supplements. It seems that the situation is not very good. A man in a pink kimono with lipstick, a bit like a geisha, handed the newspaper in his hand to the man who was half straight on the bed. This man who looks like a geisha cannot be underestimated. Just because he is the captain of the 16th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, it is hard to underestimate him. Kulala, Izo, our ace and the others still practicing in sparring. Casually flipping through the newspaper, Whitebeard asked while watching. Dad, this year's cultivation is really cruel. Every day everyone is scarred and scarred. The treasure we used to buy all kinds of nutritional products is almost gone. The man called Azang couldn't help but shudder when he recalled the cultivation of everyone, especially Ace, Marco, Vista. They were all made from death. How strong they are now, to be honest, not many people know. Counting the time, it's almost time. Ace, Marco and the others are already capable of being on their own. Turning a page of the newspaper, Whitebeard grinned Isho. He can persist for so long, and the biggest surprise to him is the improvement in the strength of Ace and others. Even if he passes away, Whitebeard believes that his sons can live safely and freely in this sea, even if it is 4 emperors, don't even think about eating the benefits. Over the years, whether it's Ace or Marco, or Josu, Vista, and many captains, they all practiced desperately, and once almost disabled themselves. If it weren't for the expensive nutrients and repair agents in the black market, everyone might have been practicing long ago. Kuhaha, Big Mom is dead, Kaido is dead, Chinluo, the first emperor, is the next person you want to challenge me, or the red-haired Shanks, or the aloof Tenryubito. Whitebeard looks up to Isho, it's time to draw a splendid end to the old days. Half a day later, on the way to the first Emperor Sea. Chinluo is recuperating, and fighting with Kaido does have a certain impact on his consumption. It may be that the level of acting is not enough. The reaction of Kaiyu Yanwang Suzaku has caused certain damage to Chinluo's body. The host played the role of Kaiyu Yanwang Vermilion Bird, to the extent of being obsessed with demons and was suppressed by his mind. Has he entered a state of downtime and repaired himself? Yes. Chinluo let out a dull sound, and the redness in his pupils began to slowly repair. The whole person fell into a deep sleep state. Nami and Perona are sitting on the deck of the first Emperor, blowing the sea breeze and enjoying the sunshine, very comfortable. However, at this moment, Nami suddenly felt the danger everywhere, raised her head, CGAC, and looked at the sky with vigilance, because there, a red meteorite was rapidly flying down here. The figure appeared in the air in an instant, and the thunder in the palm of the hand appeared, which instantly became larger, like a mountain range, passing horizontally, and the meteorite that came quickly smashed heavily into the sea in the distance, and set off layers of huge waves. This bombing instantly awakened everyone in the first Emperor Pirates. The terrifying momentum, from far to near, in the eyes of everyone, a darkness, covering the sky, appeared. Ziahaha, the first Emperor Pirates, you fought Kaido, it was really exciting. Now, do you still have the energy to deal with us? One or two, with strong breath, slowly appeared in front of everyone. It was the Blackbeard Pirates. Blackbeard. The body paused, the thunder lightsaber in Nami's hand showed, and after a splash of dust, she looked at the pedestrian opposite with fierce eyes. That face is so familiar that I have read it countless times in the newspapers. This time, Blackbeard also went out of his way, and brought all the forces established in the past year, that is, the organization called Swallowing, in the underground world. Since its appearance, Devouring has ripped apart the underground world forcefully. Even the 4 emperors, Red the Aloof, finally admitted their position. Just because the people in Devour are actually all capable people. This time, Blackbeard poured everything into it and overwhelmed all his subordinates, that is, nearly 300 capable people. The darkness was overwhelming, and at this moment they were all standing behind Blackbeard, looking greedily at Nami and the others. With the appearance of Blackbeard and others, several powerful auras suddenly erupted from this sea area island. The streamer fell, and the whole ground shook one after another, and when the smoke and dust dissipated, the figure inside was revealed. Blackbeard, you finally showed up. Soaring to the sky, headed by Nami, Perona, Fujitora, Uroge, all of them are like rainbows, it is completely the heyday. From the very beginning, Blackbeard thought that after the Battle of the Emperor, Perona and others were hit hard, and even if they recovered too quickly, it would take time. But they didn't know that Nami and Perona's recovery ability was very strong, and Fujitora and Supernova didn't suffer much injury, because the first Emperor canon had already dealt with many beast pirates from the very beginning. Perhaps, only Chinluo was seriously injured and is now recuperating. Blackbeard's face turned gloomy when he felt the breath of Perona and the others. Captain, it looks like we're going to fight to the death. Beside him, Lafayette slumped, a little dignified, and even felt a sense of unease in his heart. Kill. Blackbeard also felt a strange feeling. On the spot, without saying anything nonsense, he directly launched the general attack. Chapter 271 First Emperor Pirates, Kill. Standing in turn, Perona and others also launched a general attack. In an instant, in all directions, the First Emperor Pirates rushed towards the forces under Blackbeard. 300 ability person brought by Blackbeard was directly suppressed by the army owned by the First Emperor Pirates. After all, just compared with the background, Blackbeard simply fights. But the First Emperor Pirates. Sword light circulated, Perona bent down, and the dazzling arc shone like a fairy in the sky, with the most dazzling color color, passing at high speed. Two sides collided, Perona attacked first, and the whole world seemed to have only that white light. Ziahaha, Perona, you alone can't stop us. Where's the First Emperor? Did he get hit internally by Kaido and was dying? The domineering will is overwhelming, the atmosphere is changing, and it is rolling down. Blackbeard's left hand was crimson, terrifying magma, burned everything, turned into a giant fist, and slammed into the flashing sword light. At the same time, the conqueror and sword potential of both sides, like a meteorite bombardment, rioted silently. The sharp, dazzling, magma fist was smashed in two, and the Blackbeard looked solemn. In the other hand, endless darkness surged like a greedy beast, directly drowning the sword light. At the same time, the main members of the two sides also collided strongly. The earth trembled, and an afterimage, holding a crystal stick in hand, descended from the sky, like a tiger entering a pack of wolves, sweeping out domineering. Thor Nami, you are too arrogant. In the Blackbeard camp, the king of evil government stepped out, with a powerful aura wafting all over his body. His right fist was boiling, and he even overbearingly slammed into Nami's thunder lightsaber. In an instant, the earth was turned upside down, and a wave of air swept out. Sign up, scumbag. Suspended in the air, Nami looked at the guy standing on the ground with pale golden pupils, and said contemptuously. Lao Su is the king of evil, Avalo Pizarro, the strong man who will kill you. The breath of the king of beasts, the tyrannical suppression scene, I saw the evil government king shining all over, turned into a terrifying beast. This is the ancient species tiger fruit saber-toothed tiger. It turned out to be a kitten. Squinting her eyes, Nami spoke lightly, even if the other party was an ancient awakened. Haven't you killed yourself? Looking for death. The wicked Akoku stood up and shot at Nami like a cannonball. And Nami, holding a thunder lightsaber, also suddenly swung a sharp sword intent, and when she came up, it was a bloody battle. Meanwhile, on the other side. I have long wanted to meet you, a blind swordsman. A fist and a sword collided, tearing the eardrum, and a wave of air lifted the ground. Fighting champion Burgess, then see if you have that ability. With his bare hands, Fujitora did not use a sword, but used the fighting technique to fight Burgess. Boom, boom, underscore. The entire battle circle began to expand, and the Devil Sergeant Lafayette and Yoroj disappeared in place and appeared in the distance, constantly fighting each other. As a sniper on the Blackbeard ship, Van Oka was dragged by Bej, only to see Bej using his abilities. His whole body turned, like a moving turret, all kinds of advanced artillery fire, overwhelming, shooting at each other. And the god of death, Poison Q, was strangled by Prometheus and Napoleon, and the fire, the poisonous mist of constantly burning Poison Q, made the former full of anger. And Jewelry Bonnie's battle, Cask Bacchus and Bellamy's battle. One by one, they all found their opponents, and the battle circle began to spread, and the battle at the bottom was bloody. However, based on these results alone, the First Emperor Pirates had the upper hand in addition to the battle at the bottom, and the battle at the top. The battle was only even, and even fell into a disadvantage. Boom, boom. And just when the fire burned most of the Four Seasons Island, from far to near, a large shadow, every step, like an earthquake, slowly appeared. Gigantic battleship Sanyuan Wolf, a terrifying giant clan, is so huge that it is even taller than the largest creature known so far, Oz. This is simply a living Mount High, and as soon as it appeared, it shocked countless people. How can there be such a large creature in the world? The faces of the first Emperor pirates were solemn. The giant palm that covered the sky, like the sky tilted, swept across the battlefield suddenly. Along the way, the huge wind and waves directly shattered everything, leaving an abyss crater. "Captain, here I am." A huge roar. San Yuan looked at Blackbeard and said, "Bastard, it almost affected us." Burgess yelled in the Blackbeard pirates. San Yuan's palm just now was like a storm. That huge force would hurt him. "How can you fight such a big monster?" Jewelry Bonnie, who was fighting against Katarina, complained while looking at San Yuan who couldn't see his head. The army of the first Emperor pirates was like an ant, and San Yuan was blown into a large area just by exhaling. This is an invincible existence. Undoubtedly, with the appearance of San Yuan, the first Emperor pirates fell directly below. After all, greatness is power, and a finger is a mountain. It is conceivable how terrifying this is. Ziahaha, San Yuan, spoil me and I'll allow you to let go. With lava dripping in one hand and black mist shrouded in the other, Blackbeard laughed. Finally, I can play well. San Yuan's eyes lit up, staring at the first Emperor pirate's army. The shadow pressed down, and the huge palm, like a five-finger mountain, fell down. Looking for death. A winged figure appeared quickly. The whole ground was covered with gold and red. Euroj was seen. Using his awakening ability, he could convert the damage he received into his body size and strength. Big. The harsh tear caused San Yuan's palm to hurt, and countless blood stained the ground like a river. A terrifying explosion, the ground burst, and Euroj, who had grown bigger in size, groaned, his hands stubbornly resisting the giant hand, and his lower body sank into the ground. "Get out of here." A roar, Euroj slammed, and San Yuan slammed his huge palm on the ground, almost falling to the ground. His body, San Yuan lowered his head and looked at Euroj, who was only the height of his calf, as if he had seen a toy. His face was full of joy, and he slapped it into the sky and slammed it past. At that moment, like a storm, the entire ground burst and was swept away. At this moment, Euroj's face changed greatly. He felt the terrifying force and wanted to retreat, but at this moment, San Yuan swatted like a fly, his huge palm flashing with infinite strength, hitting Euroj right in the middle. PFF'd. The blood in the sky cracked layer by layer, and the Euroj collapsed, revealing the Euroj that was bleeding from its 7 orifices and was on the verge of dying. 1 move, instant kill. 2. Chapter 272 Euroj in the supernova era. This time, Euroj can be said to have made a bad move. He shouldn't be bigger and fight against San Yuan, because the difference in height between the two sides is just like the sky. It's like a mouse that stupidly confronts an elephant. Isn't this courting death? So before it even started, Euroj was defeated, and it was entirely self-inflicted. At this moment, San Yuan is like the first Emperor Cannon. If it is not solved first, then the bottom-level battle will be completely in the sky, and even Euroj has been killed in seconds, which is enough to explain the horror of this monster. Obviously, Fujitora and others saw the problem and wanted to solve it, but they were all held back by their opponents. Ziahaha, it looks like the victory Libra has started to fall on us. Lava in one hand, darkness in the other, Blackbeard looked at Perona with an ugly face and smiled. Blackbeard, you are asking for a dead end. How many years have you been, like a mouse crossing the street, only hiding in a dark corner? The fierce sword energy passed by, and all the weapons on the scene trembled. In Blackbeard's eyes, a barren field of swords began to emerge gradually. A small sword with vertical pupils, sharp eyebrows, and arrogant hair, Perona stood in the air, the magic sword in her hand disappeared, and the breath exuded from her body formed a sense of oppression, tearing into the wind. In the endless darkness, Blackbeard was like a formidable enemy, and a powerful conqueror rose into the sky, colliding with Perona's sword force. Ziahaha, the first Emperor Pirates will be my stepping stone to becoming king of the world. The entire ground melted and turned into billowing magma, and the temperature around it rose instantly. The sky rioted, and countless transparent weapons turned upside down one after another, like a storm, turning into a monstrous river, heading towards Blackbeard, drowning the past. Hearing Perona's sarcasm, Blackbeard's heart skipped a beat, and a bad premonition appeared directly in his heart. However, he couldn't ignore Perona's attack. It was visible to the naked eye and fell quickly. Blackbeard turned into lava and disappeared on the ground. As early as the beginning, Perona was wondering about Blackbeard's ability. After investigation, he found out that this guy should be a dark fruit person, but why is he still able to use the ability of Logia magma fruit? This guy is a dual fruit ability. How is this possible? Dark water. The endless earth turned into lava, scorching high temperature, rushing into the air, a human-shaped figure, revealing the body. The right hand was covered in black mist, facing Perona, grabbed violently, while the left hand, the terrifying lava rolling, exuded extremely terrifying of bursting power. What? Face changed drastically and he descended rapidly. Perona found that his body was flying towards Blackbeard uncontrollably. Looking at the getting closer and closer, Perona could even feel the explosive power. Taste the power of magma, volcanic eruptions. The ground shook, the terrifying force of annihilation lifted into the sky, the atmosphere wailed, Perona's eyelids were open. Looking at the endless beast that was like an escape from the cage, he snorted coldly, the sword energy swept up, the right hand was upright, a white light radiated and radiated. Pass. In 2.5, the endless magma turned into a fireball, spreading overwhelmingly around. In an emergency, the Blackbeard disappeared, avoiding Perona's sword light, and appeared strangely beside Perona. Impossible. Perona can't imagine that Blackbeard has such a fast speed. This kind of strength has exceeded the results of their investigation. Ziahaha, it seems that you all underestimated my strength. With a grim expression, Blackbeard's right hand condensed darkly, facing Perona's waist, and bombarded it. Bang! There was a huge roar. A shock wave spread. Perona blocked with one hand, as if turned into a madman, and looked at Blackbeard with gnashing teeth. However, at this moment, Blackbeard's left fist, the lava billowing, slammed into Perona's head like a broken bamboo. Damn! Unprepared, Perona could only hurriedly raise her other hand to block it. An instant, a terrifying force continued to fill Perona's mouth spurted blood, like a meteor, crashing to the ground. Blackbeard's strength is far stronger than he imagined. Hot pursuit. Blackbeard did not miss the opportunity. The black mist in his hand turned into a spear, and rushed towards Perona. On the ground, in the deep pit, Perona's eyes trembled, and a sword light rose from the ground, shining past. Falling down, Blackbeard stood on the ground, looking at the slightly embarrassed Perona. Vivi sighed, the last thing I want to face is a swordsman and a fighting technique like you. If you are capable, you will be dead. Somewhat tricky, Blackbeard frowned, looking very dignified. You guy, your strength is hidden so deeply. At this moment, Perona also felt a sense of heaviness. It was obvious that the guy in front of him had surpassed Admiral in strength and was undoubtedly an emperor. Ziahaha, Perona, follow me. Let's turn the world upside down. Taking no chances, Blackbeard started to recruit Perona. Vivi was stunned at first, then Perona looked at Blackbeard with disdain, like a clown, and sneered, Blackbeard, you never know how scary the master is, and his strength is not enough, it's impossible to run amok with conspiracy and tricks. In this sea, I don't want to live in the future, hiding my head and showing my tail, even a street mouse is inferior to. Ziahaha, then you die. In an instant riot, Blackbeard disappeared in place. Like an afterimage, endless darkness poured in. Perona only felt that the various functions of his body, as if they had been corroded, were rapidly descending. Taste the most ferocious power in history. Darkness falls. Black smoke billowed, all light was absorbed, and endless power surged, as if an endless abyss began to seal Perona's facial features. It's just a mere darkness, like a sword trapped in my hand, and you underestimate me too. Vivi leaned over, fierce sword energy, unbridled dazzling, a white light, as if dawn had broken, traveled through time and space, and turned into eternity. The darkness was torn apart, accompanied by a blood flower. Perona's scalp was numb, and there was no time to dodge. It hurts. It hurts me to death. The blood dripped, and I saw Blackbeard's chest, a wound, which was constantly overflowing with blood. The pain that was higher than ordinary people made Blackbeard curse. Gulong, Gulong. The heat rises, Blackbeard's body was crimson red, and pieces of magma rolled down. A few minutes later, the naked wound actually wriggled and healed. Cough, cough. In the distance, Perona's back was red and blood was dripping from her mouth. Her whole body looked extremely miserable. This monster. Coughing up blood, Perona looked at Blackbeard's fast-healing constitution, his pale face getting heavier and heavier. This guy, whether it is strength, speed, or constitution, has reached the Emperor, and also has a strange dark ability, as well as a powerful magma ability. Even now, it is not necessarily weaker than the other 4 Emperors. This is a terrible guy, so far, hidden too deep. Although she was a little unwilling, Perona knew that she had not fully recovered from the battle with King, and she was no match for this guy. Chapter 273 Boom, boom. The shocking collision, the smoke billowing, and the endless air waves, exploited the ground and lifted up gravel, like a rolling torrent, extending in all directions. A pale golden figure walked against the ground, slammed into the sky, and then smashed to the ground. The thunder lightsaber in his hand waved down like a broken current. Go away. Thunder and lightning filled the air, and Nami fiercely blasted the evil king, trying to solve San Yuan. Ha! Endless gravel rushes into the air, the ground that was originally intact is torn apart, and the king of evil politics is transformed into a saber-toothed tiger. His hair is standing upright, and he firmly grabs Nami's thunder lightsaber. The air roared, and a black tail, like a whip, was drawn towards Nami's head. Nami's indifferent eyes flashed violent thunder, which turned into a substantive attack, and also blasted away. With a huge roar, deafening, the two separated, and 2 cracks of tens of meters moved across the ground. Death Nami, fighting with Lao Su, still dared to be distracted and court death. With sharp teeth, he gasped with fierceness, and the king of evil was dripping with saliva, as if he regarded Nami as delicious food. Kitty, you pissed me off. The surrounding air shattered, and the golden yellow thunder made a sensation in the world. Nami was filled with rolling thunder, stepped forward, and her whole body began to change. Boom! The roar of the thunder, endless anger, fluttered around, and swayed 26 boundless sand and dust. Thunder God is shining. Violent explosion, the ground exploded, and in the rolling thunder, piercing the speed of sound, Nami was full of murderous aura, and suddenly appeared in front of the evil king, and the explosion blasted out. His pupils shrank, the king of evil government exploded, and he bowed his head sharply. In a matter of seconds, he avoided the blow. In an instant, behind him, an endless storm swept across in the shape of a fan, and was pushed horizontally across 100 meters. Turned into ruins. However, the crisis has not yet passed. Through the dark lightning, tearing the eardrum, and drawing it horizontally, producing a sonic boom. Feeling cold all over his body, he didn't even think about it. The evil king rolled on the ground, accompanied by a violent roaring explosion. The evil king appeared on the other side, but before he could breathe, his body was like a broken cannonball. He opened his mouth and vomited blood. It kept rolling along the way, and finally smashed countless buildings and lay in ruins. Cough, cough. His chest collapsed, and the evil king's face turned pale, a little unbelievable. Wow, damn Nami, I'm going to cut you into pieces. The emotion of injury directly made the evil king even more violent. Accompanied by a chilling voice, the king of bad government forcibly straightened his broken ribs, turned it into a cannonball, and charged towards Nami. This is the horror of Zone, and it is also an ancient awakened person, whose vitality is powerful and terrifying. looking for death. Furious, Nami's eyes seemed to be burning with thunder, turning into golden light on the spot, and she also rushed towards the evil government king. Instant thunder and sky flash. For a time, there was a shocking collision, and a huge roar lifted the ground and leveled the surroundings. Impossible. Just as soon as they collided, the evil politics king felt a terrifying force coming, and instantly paralyzed himself. On the opposite side, Nami's figure fell heavily on the ground, took a few steps back, her face was indifferent, and she chased the evil king again. Obviously, the evil king is not Nami's opponent. On the other side, there was also a battle, evenly matched, and both sides suffered to a certain degree of trauma. Bare-handed, boiling armament, pitch black as ink, two tall figures collided completely with the fighting technique, and the fight was indistinguishable. Waiahaha. As expected of the veteran of the first Emperor Pirates, one punch is so heavy. Burgess with long purple hair vomited blood from his mouth, looking at Fujitora who was exuding a terrifying aura on the opposite side, full of excitement. It's a pity, you're not bad, you're going to die like this. The blood from the corners of his mouth, Fujitora looked at it and said to Burgess condescendingly. It's uncertain who kills who, Fujitora Isho, let Lao Su teach you your power. Running past, the two turned into afterimages, fisted to the flesh, not only strangling together, but also armed, knowledge, fighting technique, swordsmanship, and ability, all running at high speed. With the fierce battle, a tornado formed around the two, constantly destroying everything. However, Burgess is still a little worse after all, that is, he does not have the increase of Fujitora's ability. It is obvious to the naked eye that he is attacked more and more. From the beginning of the court, he can only passively defend. However, judging from the entire battle, Nami and Fujitora alone won't help much at all, just because the situation of the others is not very good. With the raging fire and the sword in the sky, Prometheus and Napoleon, working together to contain Poison Q, are currently in balance. The rest of the first Emperor pirates were all trapped in the battle. Sanyuan swayed one step at a time, and the figure towering into the clouds, unstoppable, approached the first Emperor in the Central Sea area. Not good. Perona and the others, who were caught in the battle, looked at the direction Sanyuan was going, their expressions changed greatly, and they wanted to withdraw. You know, before Qin Luo fell into a deep sleep, he specially instructed everyone not to approach him. Ziahaha, so anxious, be careful. The figure flashed, and the giant fist of magma, towards Perona, drowned the past. Damn, the sword light flowed. Perona was a little anxious, but was held back by Blackbeard. Not only Perona, but the others were dragged and unable to leave for half a step, so they could only watch Sanyuan slowly approaching the first Emperor. Huge footprints, like big pits, continue from the end of the sky, endlessly from far to near. Kaya, a doctor, had an ugly face, looked at the behemoth that was already close at hand, and charged towards Sanyuan with the ability of fire. Shikaya, under Qin Luo's orders, generally does not participate in battles, and only serves as a doctor to treat people, but it is not a vase. You must know that Qin Luo gave her 3% of the ability of Kai Yu Yanwang Suzaku, plus she herself some training, has reached 20%, there is a certain combat ability. The huge body stood, and the Shiwang was just half of Sanyuan's bare feet. Kaya flew into the air, like an ant, and stopped in front of Sanyuan's eyes. Buzz, buzz. The giant hand that lifted the sky, covered the sky and covered the curtain, stirred the endless wind and waves, and rushed towards the imperial city behind Kaya. This is simply the hand of God, infinitely large and insignificant. Before the giant hand arrived, Kaya felt a terrifying storm, her hair was frantic on the spot, and her eyes became heavy. With such a huge body, it is definitely impossible to beat it with its own strength, so, you can only use tricks and use your abilities. Maintaining her body, Kaya pressed against Sanyuan's giant hand, and countless flames were produced in her hand, causing Sanyuan's big hand to burn. However, Kaya is too small for an arm like a mountain, so with the huge roar, the endless smoke of gunpowder rose into the sky, and the entire First Emperor was shaken. Flame. Ugly face. Kaya appeared in front of San Yuan's left. Her right hand was wrapped in flames, squeezing like a spring, and with a bang, it stabbed San Yuan's eyes. At a critical moment, San Yuan's eyelids closed like a waterfall, making Kaya's attack useless at all. "It's a little itchy." A huge roar exploded in his ears, and a trace of pain flashed across Kaya's face. After all, this guy's voice was too loud. The most important thing is that this guy even has armament, although it is not very strong, but combined with that terrifying body, it is simply an invincible existence, at least for Kaya. Suddenly, a huge crisis came, and Kaya's face changed greatly. In his keen perception, a shadow that could not be seen quickly enveloped him. Dodging quickly, Kaya disappeared in place, but San Yuan's hand was too big. Even if Kaya escaped, the strong wind, like a sledgehammer, hit Kaya heavily. The next moment, blood spattered, Kaya was as pale as snow, turned into a streamer, and smashed heavily on the deck of the First Emperor. Absolute power. With Kaya's weak body, how could he resist? Therefore, he was severely injured on the spot and lost his strength to fight again. Kaya, who was lying on the deck, had messy hair and looked very embarrassed. Chapter 274 Buzz. Buzz. However, before Kaya could catch her breath, the sky burst into a roar, the wind was surging, and a big hand covering the sky, like a broken bamboo, carrying invincible power, turned towards Kaya again, crushing the past. The visual impact is disappointing. Damn, are you going to die here? Wind danced wildly, lifting Kaya's torn skirt, revealing her long, bright white legs. Somewhat poignant, Kaya gave a wry smile, a pair of beautiful eyes, and looked at the giant hand that was getting closer and closer. However, just between the electric light and flint, a pair of big hands appeared out of nowhere in the sky above Kaya's eyes, and the fluorescence was flowing, and the space was slowly torn apart. Then, a figure stepped out. Her long hair was loose, she was wearing ordinary clothes, and she didn't have any breath, but Kaya, who was behind her, was not very tall, but her back was unusually slender. She couldn't help but feel relaxed. Chin Luo, you finally woke up. Collapsing to the ground, Kaya didn't care about the naked spring light at all. Looking at the figure in front of her, she felt that even if the sky fell, she would be fine. At the same time, the giant hand that covered the sky from the sky also fell completely. His face was indifferent, his dark pupils were full of indifference, and at the front, Chin Luo flatly stretched out his hand and collided with San Yuan's big hand flutteringly. Wind whizzing past, frantic air waves blowing, compared to San Yuan's giant hand, there is no doubt that Chin Luo looks like a hare, but it is this hair that stops San Yuan from moving forward. What's the matter? Palm of his hand was in severe pain, and San Yuan felt that he had hit a sharp point, and there was a terrifying force that caused his body to almost fall to the ground. Huh! Appearing out of thin air, Chin Luo appeared in front of San Yuan with a pair of eyes that were cold to the bone. As for San Yuan, looking at the little ant that suddenly appeared in front of his eyes, his heart was beating violently, and a deep cold breath of death rushed toward him. Beginning. First Emperor. His face was pale, and San Yuan's hair was fried, he only felt his scalp numb, and his whole body became cold. Poochie, Poochie. The fire was raging, and the heat was unbearable. Chin Luo was expressionless, clenched his fists, and fired in an instant. With the blood and teeth soaring to the sky, San Yuan's entire face collapsed, and the huge body, unable to bear the force, suddenly fell to the back. In an instant, it was as if the sky had collapsed, and a shadow that could not be seen fell suddenly. I don't know how many people were affected, and fell heavily to the ground. The endless gravel and dust formed an overwhelming trend, overwhelming the sky and drowning in all directions. Standing out of thin air, Chin Luo stretched out his hand and pressed it violently. The entire dark sky burst into flames, and a scarlet spear tip protruded from the clouds. It was hundreds of thousands of meters long and fell towards San Yuan's heart. PFF'd. Diaresis. The sound of piercing flesh, a large piece of hot blood, like a rushing river, poured out on the ground. There was no resistance at all. Like a skewer, San Yuan was nailed to the ground. This sudden scene stunned the entire scene. Yes, it's the captain shot. The army of the first emperor pirates shouted, and their blood boiled when they looked at the spear that stood above the ground. Master, I finally woke up. Perona and the others breathed a sigh of relief. The situation was completely turned upside down. Compared to the excitement of the first emperor pirates, the Blackbeard pirates were a little terrified. After all, the shadow of the famous tree of people, who was the first emperor? It was a living demon. Even Lord San Yuan was nailed to the ground. How could it be possible for them alone? Captain, what to do? At this time, the two sides had already given up their opponents. On Blackbeard's side, everyone had a heavy face, looking at the figure walking out of the dust, with a very vigilant expression. This is trouble. With gloomy eyes, Blackbeard felt a sense of terror, as if he was facing his father. That feeling made him terrified and angry. Blackbeard, you have a lot of courage. Looking around, the indifferent eyes made people tremble. Qin Luo and his party slowly walked towards the Blackbeard. After only 10 meters apart, they looked at each other. And as Qin Luo opened his mouth, a looming power began to rise slowly, overwhelmingly pressing towards the Blackbeard camp. The hurricane swept wildly and was suppressed to the extreme. With a roar, the entire venue was violent, and an invisible wave radiated past. His face changed greatly, and the Blackbeard was a little annoyed, because Qin Luo looked at him with contempt, and he did not have the respect of his opponents at all. So, Conqueror, poured out. Feeling the resistance of the Blackbeard Conqueror, Qin Luo's eyes were cold and unreserved. His own will, affecting the entire sky, overbearingly crushed the Blackbeard. It can be seen with the naked eye. Blackbeard groaned, his face turned pale, and his feet couldn't help but take a few steps back. Just a simple conqueror confrontation is enough to see the gap between the two sides. The entire venue seems to have only lightning, thunder and storms, and the center, that weak and stalwart figure. Blackbeard, who gave you the courage to offend me? Slowly, as if the king was overtaking, Qin Luo stepped out alone and walked towards Blackbeard and others. With each step, the sky roared and the ground shook. Just one person can change everything and suppress it. Everything, contempt for everything. As for the people in the Blackbeard's camp, with every step Qin Luo took, he swallowed and took a step back in horror, and some teammates around him began to fall to the ground. Only by facing the truth can we know the terribleness of the first emperor. In the face of Qin Luo's questioning, Blackbeard suddenly laughed. Diaresis Ziahaha, as expected of the first emperor who killed Bigmom and Kaido, even with red hair, he probably can't match his aura. So, you will die miserably. Looking at the Blackbeard flatly, Qin Luo seemed to be saying a very common thing, making the audience silent. I admit, I picked the wrong opponent. The laughter disappeared, and the Blackbeard also stepped forward, showing his aptitude, and then looking at the man who was stirring the situation in front of him equally, he said again, there is nothing right or wrong. If once again, I will still do it, because only the victors can write history. You first emperor understands, so do I, and everyone else understands. Quote. Qin Luo just looked at Blackbeard's speech indifferently, but his increasingly ironic expression became more and more obvious. Disdain, you have that capital, because the world is inherently unfair. Only by standing at the top can the weak eat the strong. So far, the lives that have fallen at the feet of your first emperor are no less than mine. For Qin Luo's disdain, although Blackbeard was a little angry in his heart, his face was very serious. You're right, this world is so unfair, Zhao's, but you're annoying me. In this world, I admire many people, but only you, Blackbeard, are not qualified to talk to me about this world. Right or wrong, a mouse is a mouse, and it can only hide in a dark place forever and survive. Quote, "First Emperor, do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Originally, Blackbeard thought that the other party should understand him. After all, both of them were the same kind of person, but the first emperor was too arrogant, which made Blackbeard completely unnecessary to talk, and instantly became angry. Perhaps, Qinluo agrees with Blackbeard in his heart. In order to achieve the goal, he will not compromise on the means. But this uncompromising means was used on himself, so, no matter what the other party was for, Qinluo would let the other party die. That is to say, talking with Qinluo about high-spiritedness is purely playing the piano to the cow. Perhaps only when he meets a real equal, Qinluo can look at each other equally, otherwise, it will only be an enemy, obliterating it. Disdainfully, looking at the angry Blackbeard, Qinluo didn't even have the idea of continuing the conversation, because the other party did not have the qualifications. Chapter 275 _ Kill everyone. Directly ordered, Qinluo rushed into the air, his figure quickly changed, burning the sky, facing the Blackbeard, without concealing the killing intent. Crack! The thunder turned, the rolling rays of light gradually formed, and Nami's strength gradually recovered. The power that the Blackbeard pirates radiated was simply not something that the Blackbeard pirates could resist. Therefore, the passive Blackbeard pirates could only grit their teeth. Stand firm. Boom, boom. The sky exploded, like a volcanic eruption, and a giant fist of magma rose into the sky. Turning his eyes, he remained in the state of blazing feathers and flaming phoenix and vermilion bird. Qinluo was a little surprised by the magma ability used by the Blackbeard, but he was only slightly surprised, and then he was contemptuous. Violently screaming, clenching fists and bombarding, a raging wave blew, like a broken bamboo, Qinluo directly and overbearingly smashed the magma giant fist. Compared to that dead dog, your magma ability is still worse. He swept across with one foot, causing endless storms. Blackbeard's face changed greatly, his right hand was full of terror and darkness, and he grabbed Qinluo's right foot. With a powerful impact, the ground was torn apart, Blackbeard's eyelids jumped, and he felt a pain in his right hand, but after that, he laughed wildly. Ziahaha, you got caught by me. Firmly grasping Qinluo's big feet, the Blackbeard is in control, and the terrifying darkness rises directly. You who have no ability are just a piece of garbage. Ha ha. However, Qinluo just smiled at Blackbeard's grin. PFF'd. Laughter freeze frame. Black the Beard opened his mouth and vomited blood in pain. His entire face was twisted together in an instant. Those ambitious eyes were bulging out at the moment, and it was unbelievable. Whistling past, turned into a cannonball, the Blackbeard kept rolling on the ground, and finally fell heavily into the ruins. Along the way, a terrifying crack spread to the end. Impossible. Vivi's chest collapsed, and Blackbeard could feel that his rib had been broken. At this moment, his face was covered in blood. Your ability, like Seastone, is to incapacitate the able, but isn't it too stupid of you to use the same thing you did against Whitebeard on me? Hair fluttered, Qinluo suspended in midair, stretched out his hand, a flame burned, and then looked at Blackbeard playfully. It's impossible. Why are you still using your abilities? There was absolutely nothing wrong just now. Blackbeard clearly felt that even if he was caught by him, he could still use his abilities. Blackbeard, do you underestimate me a little bit? Do you really think your ability is invincible? Don't forget, there are fighting techniques in this world. As for my ability, you may only know it if you go to hell. Falling down, the flames were burning with one foot. Qinluo got close, and slammed into the Blackbeard. Dark water. CGAC breathing. Hybrid looked crazy, his right hand turned dark, and grabbed Qinluo suddenly. Vivi frowned. Qinluo's falling body was directly and abnormally attracted by the Blackbeard, and he was a little out of control. Go to hell, First Emperor. Being pulled in front of him, the magma in Blackbeard's left hand condensed at a high concentration, causing the ground to shake and the mountains to slam into Qinluo. Blackbeard, hand-to-hand combat is your stupidest thing to do. With an indifferent face, Qin Luo clenched his fists, the flames all over his body spun rapidly, and the whole earth melted instantly. A sensational atmosphere, a fire fist, like a meteor falling from the sky, directly punched the magma and blasted it. At the same time, the darkness screamed, and a barbed spear stabbed towards Blackbeard. The scalp was numb, and without thinking about it, Blackbeard turned into magma, directly elementalized, and escaped. Due to the special reasons of the dark fruit, the Blackbeard cannot be elementalized, but the magma fruit is not. Although it is somewhat difficult, it has been conquered by the Blackbeard in the past few years. Therefore, the current Blackbeard is far better than imagined. Terrible in. However, facing Qin Luo, the current Blackbeard is still a little worse. Hot bubbling, with a radius of 10,000 meters, directly formed a sea of fire. Observation hockey radiated, Qin Luo disappeared, and appeared in a bumpy place. Without hesitation, he stepped on it. At this time, a magma monster rose from the ground and roared, like a volcanic riot, and launched an impact. With a cold snort, Qin Luo's eyes were golden red, and he pressed it down hard. In an instant, the magma shot and the sea of fire was torn apart. Qin Luo was bathed in the magma, observation hockey, overlooking from a high degree. However, this time Qin Luo didn't find the Blackbeard, which made him frown. Ziahaha, First Emperor, observation hockey, is of no use to me. In all directions, the hot magma continued to spray, and there was a sound of Blackbeard grinning. This is the most ferocious force in the world, the darkness that devours all. With a gloomy face, Qin Luo stood in the magma, with terrifying flames burning all over his body. From a distance, he looked like a demon in a fire, terrifying. Darkness can not only make the capable person incapacitated, but also can pull everything and devour everything. Energy, 5 senses, things, and everything will be ruthlessly erased, just like a black hole. Blackbeard, I admire your self-control. With a livid face, Qin Luo Binghan exited, and with a wave of one hand, the entire sky was densely packed, with countless swords, spears, swords and halberds, quickly barbed down, revealing a sense of terror. Flame, it's my home court, just magma, do you think it's still before? Whoa, whoa. A powerful sound of breaking through the air came, and a weapon that condensed flames, wrapped around a terrifying armed force, overwhelming the sky, bombarded the entire sea of magma indiscriminately. PFF'd, poof. Flame and magma, no one can do without the other, because there is a flame before there is magma. There is a symbiosis between the two, and there are checks and balances. What's more, each of these swords, spears, swords and halberds is wrapped around armament. Even if there are not many armaments, just a little bit is enough to play an unimaginable role. Therefore, the earth shook and the mountains swayed, and the entire sea of magma and fire rioted, like a sword mound of fire, full of shock and impact. I found it. With a grin, in observation hockey's perception, a touch of abnormal breath was completely exposed. The flames blazed across the sky, like a dragon going out to sea. Qin Luo dashed over and bombarded heavily in a piece of magma. At this time, Blackbeard gritted his teeth and used his abilities to raise the boundless sea of magma, forming a demon that launched a counterattack against Qin Luo. For a while, the explosions continued, and the magma demon was smashed by Qin Luo with a punch, revealing the true body of Blackbeard. A mouse is a mouse, no matter how strong it is, it can only cower in the dark. In close combat, Qin Luo kicked out, causing the atmosphere to whine and produce a sonic boom. First Emperor, what are you? Qin Luo's words, like a knife, kept piercing the Blackbeard's heart, which made the latter completely angry. Darkness in one hand, magma in the other hand, the Blackbeard heavily bombarded Qin Luo's feet, and then a terrifying shock wave appeared, directly setting off the entire sea of magma. Blackbeard's right hand trembled a little, and the entire huge body retreated, and with a roar, it stopped dead on the ground. And Qin Luo, turned over, took a step back, and stood calmly in the lava. The two of them, standing with each other, all looked at each other with deep coldness. The sky, the dark red thunderbolts, kept slashing, and a heavy sense of oppression swept all around. Almost at the same time, the ground burst, and the two disappeared in place, fighting together. Punching to the flesh, the fire swaying, like a humanoid tyrannosaurus, tearing everything up. Blackbeard's strength is far more powerful than Qin Luo imagined, and close combat is not bad. Chapter 276 _ The darkness boils, the magma rolls, punches and kicks shake the sky, and every blow from both sides can shatter a mountain, which is very ferocious. Turning sideways, his elbows slammed into Blackbeard's chest, accompanied by the blood of the sky. Blackbeard's face was hideous, the 5 claws of his right hand were bent, the rich darkness and armed, brutally tore Qin Luo's shoulders, leaving 5 more after the bloodstain. The two stretched their feet at the same time and slammed into each other heavily. Rolling out, Qin Luo was lying on the ground, clutching the ground with both hands, and stopped after sliding for tens of meters. And Blackbeard, like a cannonball, hit the ground heavily. Obviously, in the collision just now, Blackbeard fell into a disadvantage. Boom! The pain that was different from ordinary people made Blackbeard hideous like a ghost. He got up, panted for short breaths, and looked at Qin Luo with murderous intent. Poochie, Poochie. The flames burned. Qin Luo moved his body, reached out to the Blackbeard, and made a provocative gesture of hooking his fingers. Furious, Blackbeard started, and the endless darkness lifted into the sky, as if the ancient gluttonous opened the dark mouth devoured everything. The great dark ages lifted into the sky, and gradually bit towards Qin Luo. Abundant pressure, nothingness, decomposition, everything shrouded in darkness, turned into dust, and sank forever into the endless darkness. And Qin Luo, looking at the boundless darkness, sneered, stretched out his hand, a trace of flame appeared on his fingertips, and then rapidly expanded, exuding endless rays of light like a sun, and appeared in the sky. The sun and darkness, like the two polar worlds, divide the heaven and the earth, and collide brazenly. Panic is catastrophic. The powerful tearing force makes people unable to open their eyes. From a distance, the entire sky is broken. Damn, why can't he invalidate his ability? His feet stomped on the ground, his body moved backwards, the black beard was covered in blood, and his heart was full of unwillingness. As early as a few years ago, he captured Ace alive in this way. Now and then, how is it similar, but why, now his ability does not play any role. Roaring, Blackbeard looked at the darkness that was gradually being driven back by the sun, full of tyranny. Wind volcano forest. Forced step by step, Blackbeard completely gave up the idea of smashing Qin Luo with darkness. Therefore, using magma fruit, in the endless darkness, a volcano, flowing with hot magma, had been submerged for a long time, and suddenly erupted. Darkness and magma, polarized colors, slammed heavily on the slowly turning Liu. A wave of air engulfed everything, and the entire earth shattered, with a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters, and ceased to exist. Using dual abilities, he resisted the boundless light, but the load brought by it was unbearable for Blackbeard, because his physical strength was rapidly depleting at the moment. The whole sky was dyed golden, and from a distance, it was like a vast and fierce battle hanging in the air. Qin Luo stood in the center, like the god of the sun, full of nobility and majesty. Blackbeard, although I don't know why you can have 2 abilities, but based on this alone, if you want to defeat me, then I can only say, wishful thinking. From the beginning to the end, Qin Luo's eyes were full of contempt. It was the look of an emperor looking at civilians. It can be said that this is full of humiliation for Blackbeard. First Emperor, I admit that you are very powerful, but you also underestimate me too much. Suddenly roaring, Blackbeard went all out, squeezing his own strength. The darkness merged with the magma, forcibly drowned the endless brilliance, and pressed Qin Luo. Light and darkness are constantly intertwined, as if a new power has been generated, making Qin Luo, who was originally dismissive, narrow his eyes. Any power, under the light of Suzaku, will be destroyed. With 5 fingers open, flames all over his body, skyrocketing suddenly, Chinluo looked up at the endless brilliance of the sky. An even more violent force, instantly flooded, exuding light and heat that burned everything. Boom, boom. Condensed to the end, it shattered with a bang, the power of various handovers shattered, 2 circular arcs, destroying the dry and pulling the rot, radiating the entire Four Seasons Island, a huge mushroom cloud, also at this moment, connecting the world one after another. At this point, Shiji Island was torn apart and fell into disintegration. In the center, the islands in the sea were penetrated, revealing the abyss that connected to the sea. In front of this abyss, everything seemed so insignificant, and on a broken surface, Blackbeard was covered in blood and bruised. Lying here. Bang! There was a mess on the ground, a big hand suddenly appeared in a pile of rubble, and then the ground shook, Chinluo dripped blood from his mouth, and stood up with messy hair. Observation Haki, radiated by. Flying into the air and landing on the ground, Chinluo looked at the Blackbeard who was deep in the ground, and an uncontrollable killing intent filled the entire turbulent sky. Cough, cough, ziahaha, underscore. Deep in the ground, Blackbeard was covered in bruises, gritted his teeth, and slowly stood up. The blood was dripping continuously, and the situation was very miserable. The wounds of different sizes on the body could be seen deep in the bones. The blood was full of fishy smell, and it was trickling out from the body. PFF'd. However, as soon as he stood up, 1 foot pierced out, carrying a rubbing sound, and with a loud bang, it kicked Blackbeard's stomach. He vomited blood, and Blackbeard's whole face was distorted, and his bulging eyes were full of violence. Then the whole earth exploded, and Blackbeard turned into a streamer, constantly rolling on the ground, and finally after leaving a terrifying crack, heavy smashed into ruins. The body lost control, as if the pain that was different from ordinary people disappeared at this moment. The Blackbeard turned over, his chest was slightly heaving, and just like that, he looked at the sky covered in blood. The sound of footsteps from far to near, as if everything was under control, Vivi turned his face. Blackbeard was a little unwilling, but looking at the indifferent face, for some reason, a feeling of powerlessness swayed in his heart. Thinking about myself, I bet everything on the dark fruit. I got my wish. This devil fruit is the most ferocious ability in history. However, because of this man, my first plan failed. Then, it was this guy who pushed himself to the point where he could only survive in the dark. His original ambition, like a bubble, would shatter at any time. All because of this guy. Why can't the dark fruit nullify the opponent's ability? I was defeated by my own hands, I was defeated by my own impulses. Looking back on the past, Blackbeard's face was full of unwillingness, but facing this man, he was really helpless. 2. Chapter 277 Stopping, Chinluo looked at the Blackbeard lying on the ground, lingering, and said coldly. Although I don't know why you can use 2 abilities at the same time, you may be invincible in the face of others, but for the 4 emperors, it's just a little troublesome, you can't even understand one ability. Dare to try the second one, I have to admire your big heart. Chinluo didn't have anything to say about Blackbeard. He just sneered. If the other party has fully grasped the first ability, then it is okay to try the second. But for the dark fruit, is Blackbeard really fully developed? The answer is no. Sometimes, having more ability does not mean that it is a good thing. The most important thing, the characteristics of Blackbeard's dark fruit, is of no use to Chinluo. Think about it, Chinluo is not afraid of the sea, how could he be afraid of the ineffectiveness of Blackbeard's dark fruit? As for magma fruit, the same powerful, but for Chinluo, apart from the terrifying impact, the temperature is also just a decoration. In other words, the Blackbeard was completely eaten by Chinluo. Conqueror, armament, observation Haki, fighting technique, ability, resilience, staying power, which of these, Chinluo is weaker than Blackbeard? Therefore, the reason is that Blackbeard chose the wrong opponent. If it is someone with other abilities, or the other 5 emperors, it is very likely that he will really be planted in the hands of Blackbeard. Unfortunately, the advantage of Blackbeard is superior to Qin Luolai. Say, it doesn't work. Ziahaha, I will take your life, the first emperor, the first emperor. Suddenly, Blackbeard, who was on the verge of death, instantly burst into an invincible aura. The darkness in his right hand was so thick that it couldn't be dissolved, filled with endless nothingness and erosion, and violently slammed into Qin Luo's chest. Facing Blackbeard's sudden attack, Qin Luo was expressionless. The corner of his mouth flashed a slight arc, squeezed his fist, compressed the high-intensity flame, tore through the atmosphere, and heavily bombarded with Blackbeard's fist. In an instant, the flames and darkness impacted, forming a monstrous wave, turning into a circular arc, and exploiting it again. Blackbeard, it's a good show. The thick sarcasm hurt Blackbeard's eyes. From the beginning to the end, Qin Luo did not take it lightly, not to mention Blackbeard's viciousness. How could it be so simple to lose just with the power of the Emperor? Obviously, there is only one answer, that is, Blackbeard deliberately shows weakness. Of course, it is also excluded that Blackbeard has really been hit hard. Damn! The endless unwillingness turned into anger, making Blackbeard sullen, and the lava flowed in his left fist, slamming it towards Qin Luo's head. The terrifying power ripped everything apart. Qin Luo Vivi turned sideways, kicked his right foot on Blackbeard's chest, and then moved sideways, slamming his elbow on Blackbeard's right shoulder. In an instant, the entire ground turned upside down, and the endless cracks suddenly broke. Blackbeard was also fierce, gritted his teeth firmly, and his left fist slammed into Qin Luo's chest. With a grunt, a trace of blood overflowed from the corner of Qin Luo's mouth. Finally, the two collided heavily and opened the distance. PFF'd. Cough. He vomited blood continuously. His face was pale, almost unsteady, and fell to the ground, and Qin Luo, taking a few steps back, the strong arms in his chest dissipated, revealing the bruises inside, and it was initially estimated that a rib was broken. There are 2. Very good, really good. Angrily laughed, Qin Luo raised his head and looked at the Blackbeard coldly, with flames all over his body, and 2 figures stepped out. Boom boom. The ground exploded, and the flames of Kai Feather Flame Phoenix Suzaku turned into 3 figures, turned into Cheng Hong, and rushed directly to Blackbeard. His face changed greatly, looking at the 3 figures that came from the impact. Blackbeard gritted his teeth, as if he had made up his mind, full of viciousness. Dark delivery, magma riot. Blackbeard gave up everything, and planned to drag this man to hell even if he died. In an instant, 3-on-1, Blackbeard didn't have much power to fight back at all, and could only passively defend. In just a moment, the body was covered with wounds, and the situation was extremely tragic. The strong erosion drowned a flame figure, causing the latter to turn into foam, but at this moment, a long spear pierced Blackbeard's left shoulder. Blood splattered, Blackbeard roared, punching another flame figure, and at this moment, Qin Luo appeared on the left side of Blackbeard, grabbed with both hands, grabbed Blackbeard's left hand that shattered the flame figure, and pulled, with the blood rushing to the sky. An arm fell to the ground and rolled a few times. It was clearly visible that the blood-stained fingers were still shaking. Ah! His face was distorted, and the Blackbeard screamed. The pain of being torn apart made him almost shocked. You must know that the pain suffered by the Blackbeard because of the dark fruit was several times superimposed. His eyes were crimson, his black beard screamed miserably, desperate, his right fist cast the darkness with all his strength, and slammed heavily towards Qin Luo. With the huge roar, Qin Luo crossed his hands, and the whole figure retreated, standing not far from the Blackbeard. His head was sweating profusely, his black beard was gazing loudly, his entire face was bloodless, and his left arm was even more irregularly attached to his shoulders with flesh and blood. But the bigger crisis has not dissipated. I saw the flame figure that had been shattered with great difficulty, stepped out of Qin Luo's body again, and stood on both sides of him. Looking at all this, Blackbeard's eyes could not help showing a hint of despair. However, Chinluo was indifferent to Blackbeard's miserable appearance and attacked again. The figure changed, and the black beard on his left arm was lost. In the face of Chinluo's 3 blows, he was completely powerless. With Chinluo's appearance, the morale soared, and Perona and the others were completely relaxed. On the edge of the sky, thunder sounded, and 2 transcendent observation hokis were constantly colliding. Bullets were fired one by one, without knowing how they were fired. One by one, they flew towards Nami in a weird way. The thunder flashed and fell into the clouds, and the shot from Van Augur turned into a bubble. Figure flashed, the ground burst, and without thinking about it, under the induction of observation hoki, Van Augur rolled on the spot and appeared in the distance. But she was already prepared. Nami turned into an electron and appeared directly on Van Augur's head, stomping down with her right foot. The face of this speed, even if Van Augur's observation hoki can capture it, it will not be able to make a corresponding defense, and with the passage of time, various functions of Van Augur's body have also begun to decline. Clearly visible that Van Augur's chest was charred black, and the smell of meat was exuded. Gritting his teeth firmly, armed and wrapped, Van Augur held up his sniper rifle and blocked it on his head. There was a violent explosion, the entire ground collapsed, and a stream of sand and dust covered everything. Out! Van Augur vomited blood, cut through the thick fog, and finally hit the ground heavily. The face of Nami, Van Augur is not an opponent at all. After all, he is just a sniper. It can be said that there is no problem in taking people's heads from thousands of miles away, but in the face of Nami's attack, speed, and strength are like monsters. The guy is completely a target and has no chance of winning. Maybe Van Augur only has observation hoki, which can be compared with Nami. As for the others, it is not at the same level. It has to be said, bad luck for Van Augur. Chapter 278 To the ground, his face turned pale. Van Augur struggled to get up, but just stood up, appeared out of thin air. Time seemed to slow down. A black foot blasted the atmosphere like a whip, and slammed into Van Augur's body. On the chest. Crack. A terrifying sound of bone cracking sounded. Van Augur's eyes turned white, and his entire chest collapsed, shooting back like a streamer. The crisis of death was close at hand. Flying backwards, electrons condensed, Nami appeared above Van Augur, and fell suddenly, with the ground shaking. A shock wave swept wildly, blasting all around. The smoke dissipated, Nami shook her foot, a drop of blood dripped, and under her feet, Van Augur's broken body that had been penetrated, gradually stopped shaking. And battles like this one-sided crushing happened in almost all kinds of places. 26 Sex Katarina in the Blackbeard Pirates. She was panic-stricken at the moment, looking at the dilapidated ruins around her, her body tensed. Damn! Bleeding from her abdomen, Katarina's hair was scattered, and her body was covered in dust. She looked like a beggar and was extremely embarrassed. Appearing out of thin air, close at hand, Perona turned her head to fight her, looking at Katarina with a cold and indifferent expression. Facing the sudden appearance of Perona, Katarina's face was twisted, but she was more frightened. Like a mad witch, Katarina bent her 5 fingers, her fingertips turned towards Perona, and grabbed it. For the ugly witch in front of her, Perona didn't even have the desire to fight, because the opponent was not only weak, but also extremely ugly. With the use of her ability, Perona's right hand flashed a sword light, facing Katarina's right hand, and slashed it. In an instant, Katarina's right hand was broken and turned into pieces of rotating meat, with no attacking power at all. Of the victory, Perona disappeared and appeared behind Katarina. The next second, Katarina's head turned, even 360 degrees, spinning indiscriminately. You. With her eyes constantly shifting, Katarina had no idea what was going on. Facing this situation, let alone fighting, even finding the direction was a problem. Perona waved one hand, the space in front of her was broken, accompanied by a fountain of blood, a head, flying high, and rolled to the ground. Instant kill, completely without any backhand, this is the power of Perona. And as Nami and Perona finished their respective opponents, almost at the same time, they set their sights on the other Blackbeard members. Lightning bolted from the blue sky, electrons condensed, and Nami appeared on the battlefield of Prometheus, Napoleon, and Poison Q, with a little playfulness on her face. I saw Poison Q, who was being pressed and beaten by Napoleon and Prometheus at the moment, and only had the strength to parry. Perhaps in the face of one Mihos, Poison Q can be suppressed, but if it is two Mihos, apart from being able to resist at first, then the end of Poison Q can already be predicted. Z. The fingertips were compressed by thunder, and Nami watched it for a few minutes, and found that Napoleon and the two guys hadn't won the Poison Q, so she couldn't stand it anymore, so she shot. A thunderbolt penetrated, and directly smashed Poison Q's head. Boss Nami. Looking at the fallen headless corpse, Prometheus and Napoleon stepped forward with unhappy expressions. It was hard to find a guy who practiced his hands. Well, he was about to be defeated by the two of them, but he stepped in and his head was robbed. Whoever changed, felt a little uncomfortable. What? Look at your faces, you seem to have a problem with me. With her arms on her shoulders, Nami looked at the two guys playfully. How is it possible that you have an opinion on anyone, and you can't have an opinion on Nami boss? Their expressions changed like flipping a book in an instant. Prometheus and Napoleon licked their faces and complimented Nami. Although the other party was not his own master, it was easy to take care of them at that time. With such a weak existence, don't you feel ashamed that you have fought together for so long? After this incident, you all give me a good practice. Ah. Like dried radishes, Prometheus and Napoleon, listless. Time passed, and as Nami, Perona and others pulled their hands, this time, they did not stand by, but joined the battle, killing all the members of the Blackbeard pirates one after another. Burgess, Lafitte, Vasco and others in the Blackbeard pirates have no counterattack at all in the face of Nami and others, and there is no chance to escape, and they are directly bombarded by force. So this war, from the very beginning, was doomed. After Nami and others joined forces to kill the cadres of the Blackbeard pirates, the rest was devoured by the forces that Blackbeard had cultivated in the past few years. Everyone turned out to be a capable person. But Face the First Emperor's army had no backhand power at all. For a while, they were dead and caught. It can be said that this time the Blackbeard pirates suffered a complete defeat. After taking off, Nami and the others came to the battlefield of Chin-Luo and Blackbeard after finishing all the enemies. However, at this time, the Blackbeard had run out of oil, and in Chin-Luo's hands, no matter how much he struggled, the result was doomed. The blood splattered, and a pungent bloody smell dyed the earth red. At this moment, Blackbeard's arms disappeared, and Chin-Luo grabbed one in his hand and threw it on the ground like trash. His eyes were dim, the Blackbeard was lying in the gravel, and all his ambitions were completely shattered at this moment. Die. This time, Chin-Luo has no interest in torturing Blackbeard, because there is no need for it at all. Based on Chin-Luo's current state of mind, to be honest, Blackbeard is optional. The anger is gone, because the other party is now crawling under his feet, and he is the one who wins. The flames flowed, and a spear dangled, taking Blackbeard's life. Blackbeard wailed hideously, but in the end it was of no use and died. Chapter 279 The restoration of the nearby islands, as well as various measures, everyone worked together to restore it in the shortest possible time. Nami, this matter is left to you. The strong smell of blood, everyone stood on the broken surface. Chin-Luo's face was a little ugly. After all, the nearby islands were badly damaged. However, Chin-Luo believes that it will not take long for this kind of scene to return to its original state. There may even be some unexpected scenic spots due to the altered landform. Undoubtedly, after the war, there will be many things to be busy with. The next day, the heat was in full swing, the military and civilians were together, and Nami and others also used their abilities to start repairing the nearby islands. Under such a powerful action, with each passing day, it was believed that in just 1 month, the nearby islands would be restored to their original state. And even change the world, far better than before. That night, after brainstorming, the entire First Emperor Pirates group took their own ideas and divided a small part of the nearby islands. Unprecedented, as long as there are measures in the world, just taking advantage of this opportunity to make a lot of transformation, and among them, in order to better build the economic zone of the First Emperor Pirates, it can be said that the cadres of the First Emperor Pirates are also racked my brains. For example, dig a canal on a nearby island, build countless leisure islands, and raise some exotic means of transportation. As long as it can attract people and stimulate the economy, planning and construction have already begun. It can be said that although the nearby islands have ushered in destruction this time, it is not a new life. All in all, everything is going in a good direction. And, the next day, the whole world reported that the First Emperor Pirates completely wiped out the Blackbeard Pirates, all of which were widely reported. And with these reports, recently, the First Emperor Pirates destroyed the 4 emperors and the Blackbeard Pirates, one after another, making the First Emperor Pirates' prestige even more soaring to the sky. A veritable new world's top hegemon, the head of the 4 emperors. Bej, the supernova cadre of the First Emperor Pirates, and others led the army to pursue them from all directions. Start to destroy some daring pirate groups. For a time, the pirate groups that were terrified after hearing the news, either fled or were killed, causing the new world to be in riots. In order to avoid the edge of the First Emperor Pirates, these pirates fled to the other 4 emperors. The sea, or the Great Route. In short, the new world is not quiet for a moment. And it wasn't these that shocked the world the most, but the island expansion plan announced by the First Emperor Pirates on the 3rd day. That's right, the super-large island of the First Emperor Pirates has also begun to expand, and this time the purpose is to some fertile places in the Beast Sea area and the Bigmom Sea area. Some of these islands are small, medium, and even large. The First Emperor Pirates actually led 20 small sea kings, 10 medium sea kings, and 4 large sea kings as consignment legs, leading the First Emperor. The Pirates' army has brought these islands closer to the territory of the First Emperor Pirates again and again. Undoubtedly, this big move shocked the whole world. Not to mention the difficulty, the madness of the First Emperor Pirates alone makes people sigh. Among them, the most frightening thing is why the First Emperor Pirates can control these sea kings. Even living in it is a miracle that the large sea kings in the deep sea can control 4 heads. In the eyes of ordinary people, a small sea king is an invincible existence, but for some big forces, it is not surprising that the First Emperor Pirates control the sea king. After all, as long as it is a conqueror, or a powerful person, he can simply instruct the sea king, but it is just a little troublesome. With the addition of this powerful foot strength, the territory of the First Emperor Pirates began to change visible to the naked eye. The area that was originally considered a super-large area began to become wider. Of course, the island expansion plan must have been blocked by the Aborigines living above. After all, you just misappropriated the island that they could survive without saying a word. This is simply not leaving any hope. For these, Chinluo had an idea for a long time, that is to directly plunder the island, plunder the life. It is very domineering. Chinluo gave a clear order, the island and the population cannot be less. After all, if there are more sites but fewer people, what's the use? Therefore, one after another, they conquered the islands directly, and then made a unified arrangement to become the people of the First Emperor Pirates. It's that simple and direct. Therefore, there are many people who resist. In the Sea of Beasts and the Sea of Bigmom, there are many kingdoms or islands of life that are full of vitality, and they are angry and raise their weapons and swear to protect their homeland. However, waiting for them is not a favor, but a killing. Any island, only give 1 day, either surrender or perish. Therefore, during that period of time, the sea was dyed red again. Facing the slaughter of the First Emperor Pirates, one group in one kingdom lowered their heads and chose to become the citizens of the First Emperor Pirates, which was arranged uniformly. Zhao is good. How similar this scene is to the expansion a year ago. At that time, the people living in the first Emperor Pirates were the same, full of anger and unwillingness, but after a year, everything has changed dramatically. Slaves, employment relationships, and all of these have developed peacefully. Up to now, the people of the first Emperor Pirates are also happy to be able to live in the first Emperor Pirates. Chaos is inevitable, but after that, there is peace. However, all this was accompanied by endless bones and blood. But if the first Emperor Pirates want to expand, it must do so. Since gentleness is not enough, then violence is required. It is conceivable how huge the first Emperor Pirates are now. The head of the 4 emperors, worthy of the name. Chapter 280 _ At night, the lights are dim, 9 Snake Island, the back garden of the palace. On the simple table, there are many delicious dishes. Leaning together, Chin-Luo and Hancock are having a dinner. Chin-Luo hugged Hancock and sat in front of the computer to write a manuscript. Hancock split the peeled longan into 2 parts, removed the black longan in the middle, and then cut the longan flesh in half and stuffed half into Chin-Luo's mouth. The other half into his mouth. Sweet? Hancock asked with a smile. She was wearing a pink home dress, with a plain face facing the sky, her long hair scattered, and her slender thighs tucked together, giving her a feeling of being both lazy and sexy. It's not as sweet as you, Chin-Luo said with a smile, but the sweet words blurted out. Lying, Hancock said. You didn't even look at me. Chin-Luo sighed softly, took out the digital camera, turned on the camera function. He pointed the mirror of his phone at Hancock and said, laughs. So Hancock grinned at the camera. Look for yourself. Chin-Luo pointed to Hancock's smiling face on the mirror and said, is it sweet? To be fair to yourself, is your smile sweet? Sweet. Hancock blinked at Chin-Luo and said shyly. Don't doubt me in the future. Chin-Luo clicked the shutter on Hancock's face, recorded her sweetest smile, and said, I hate others to doubt me the most. I'm sorry. Hancock put the peeled longan meat into Chin-Luo's mouth in time, and said, I apologize to you, okay. What kind of apology? Chin-Luo asked solemnly with a straight face. What do you want? Hancock asked. It's gotta give people a little hint, isn't it? What do I want? You give what I want. I told you to stay with me at night, so you will stay. Chin-Luo said, the key is your own heart. Then I'll stay with you at night, Hancock said. If you want. Really? Chin-Luo had a smile in his eyes. Of course, Hancock said firmly. Hancock really stayed, and had no idea how horrible things would be waiting for her. Chin-Luo then looked at Hancock and deliberately pretended that it didn't matter whether he had a drink or not, and asked, would you like a drink? There is a term called disordered sex after drinking, which shows that alcohol and sex are always closely linked. Being drunk, or pretending to be drunk, can do a lot of inappropriate things. As long as Hancock agrees, Chin-Luo can take down Hancock in one go. I'm such a sinister man. Chin-Luo thought to himself. Of course. Hancock nodded. Chin-Luo was secretly happy in his heart and shouted, okay. Afterwards, Chin-Luo and Hancock started drinking. The two chatted while drinking, gossip about the industry, and talked about everything, just like those couples who have been in love for many years. Before they knew it, the beer in front of them was finished. Chin-Luo looked at Hancock and asked, can I still drink? Can you still drink? Hancock asked back. I'm fine. I'm fine too. So Chin-Luo waved again and shouted, go on. Chin-Luo and Hancock each drank 6 bottles. He didn't expect that Hancock could drink so much. If he didn't use his ability to dispel the smell of alcohol, he wouldn't be able to drink Hancock. Chin-Luo's cheeks were slightly red, his head was swollen, his speech was not as neat as before, and there was no way for a witty to open his mouth like before. However, he couldn't give up. He has ideals. Have goal. His journey is a sea of stars. Mainly Hancock. Chin-Luo tried his best to widen his eyes and looked directly at Hancock's charming little face. Afterwards, Chin Luo was helped back to the room by Hancock, because he had already started shaking while walking. It's all over the place, and it would be a shame to drop a glue on it. Hancock put Chin Luo on the sofa, found a clean towel to help him wipe the water stains on his face and hair, and said, "I'll pour you some water." "No more," Chin Luo said. He drank so much beer that his stomach was already straining. "I'm going to the bathroom." After closing the door of the bathroom, Chin Luo opened the water tap and poured several handfuls of cold water on his face in a row, which made his hot body a little cooler and his head became clearer. Snapped. Chin Luo slapped himself in the face. Looking up at himself in the mirror, he couldn't help but curse. "Chin Luo, you idiot, trash. You can't even drink a woman, what else can you do? You can win if you fight, you can do it if you try, don't give up easily." When Chin Luo came out of the bathroom, Hancock was already sitting on the sofa watching TV, and there were 2 cups of hot water just poured on the coffee table. "Drink the honey water," Hancock said aloud. "You can hangover." "I'm not drunk," Chin Luo said, still obediently took the honey and drank it, turned to look at Hancock, and asked, "What shall we do next?" Hancock's long eyelashes were clipped, his pretty face was shy, his eyes were like water, and he asked timidly, "What do you want to do?" Chin Luo already had the answer in his heart, but he still pretended to be reserved for a while and said, "Let's watch a movie." "Okay, I like watching movies the most," Hancock readily agreed. Chin Luo sneered in his heart. "Women, you should never underestimate how shameless a man is. A few days ago, Shi Huang Cinema made a movie. I liked it a lot, why don't we watch it together?" "Okay, what movie is it?" "Conjuring the Soul," Chin Luo said. "This movie is naturally based on the movies he has seen on Earth, and it is shot in this world as a representative of continuation." Hancock blinked, looked at Chin Luo and asked, "Are you sure? Do you really want to see it?" "Of course," Chin Luo said through gritted teeth. "Great, I like watching horror movies the most," Hancock said happily. "Movies are played on TV screens." "I'm going to turn off the lights," Hancock said. "You must turn off the lights when watching a horror movie." "Me too, it looks like there is an atmosphere," Chin Luo said in agreement. At the beginning of the movie, the male protagonist moved his family into an old house, and then a series of terrifying things happened one after another. When the dog in the family died mysteriously, the terrifying plot began to unfold, and the soundtrack became more and more impressive, thrilling and creepy. At the beginning, Chin Luo and Hancock sat side by side. Although their bodies collided from time to time, they were still independent individuals. "What?" With the child's sudden scream, Chin Luo's body shook violently, the hairs all over his body stood upside down, and he couldn't help but pounce towards Hancock's arms. "You have to protect me," Chin Luo said. "Don't be afraid." Hancock put his arms around Chin Luo's head and said, "I'm here." ..